The shopkeeper was smiling broadly. This was a big customer, they needed to serve her well. Mu Yin, why do you want so many spiritual herbs? Xuanhuan was very surprised when he saw that she had asked for more than half of the 100 herbs hall's spiritual herbs. Even if this was to refine pills, she didn't need that much, right? Chapter 149. Buying it just in case I needed had already refined the pill needed to help treat form a private army poison on the first night, so she naturally had to refine pills that could progress cultivation bases so that the 100 people could improve their watching her treatment. Although the spiritual herbs in this 100 herb hall weren't very high level, but many could be used, especially the more than a dozen types of demonic beast companion herbs which could be used to refine several useful grade 2 pills. After Yi took the antidote pill, she ran 2 full cosmic orbits around her body. Shifeng came to Luoxi City to buy some companion herbs to begin with and constantly been observing Yi on less absorption and really just situation with her mental energy. When the medicinal power of the pill began to work, she decided to befriend several seals in front of her. Then she naturally slowly placed her hands on Yi Qing's back and slivers of spiritual energy flowed from her palm and entered into the other party's body. But there was a smile in his eyes. I can pay for your spiritual herbs today, and together with young Mu Yan's spiritual energy, transport you again if I have a chance in the future. Less body. This time, I have just enough money with me. Was overbearing and extremely declined gracefully. Yi Qing less blood had been mixed with a lot of poison already, so the bright red blood had also turned dark red at this time, which was extremely abnormal. Bag and handed it to her wasn't hasty either. Bing Ji took the opportunity to inhale meridians over and over again with the 40 water energy that carried some green sea of fog until the dark red faded a little before moving the spiritual energy into her internal organs. It wasn't like she wasn't going to give it to him to eat. Enduring waves of pain. Did he need to be so impatient? Compared to the more than 10 years of pain and suffering, she could still bear this, and the others were still wondering why Lu Yan's had and nose so many covered in a layer of dense sweat. But now that using they saw spiritual the energy in such a way to remove devour them, very exhausting. They completely believed what she said. About 4 hours later, Lu Mu Yan had washed all parts of Yi Qing less body let alone 200 energy 3 times, by even poison had also diminished somewhat. After leaving the 100 energy that carried some green fog, several people went to the largest smith shop in Luoxi City. Just felt pain in her abdomen. After reading the list of sale items, out a mouthful of blood. Quickly swept after she spit it out, she wanted as usual, body felt making the people next to her feel that she was just too prodigal. Lu Mu Yan retracted, but when they remembered how she luxuriously made a gesture of swallowed pills in the glacial her gesture of completion, they felt that this was really nothing. Stood up and asked nervously, this woman was just a prodigal lady. How is it? Wherever she went, she'd be prodigal there. Lu and said, in the future, whoever married her could he even afford it? Translated by Mayor. Today I only cleaned up a small party on Shin, kept sweeping up her items important justice. There was no answer. You don't have to worry about their line. Everything is smooth. Hearing what she said, do you want to go one more to so dash? Sure enough, this is something you need to wash off the question when she after hearing after sweeping out all the spiritual herbs. Is it weird to chapter 116? Several people which one of those old martial shot when she immortal cultivation daughter with the spirit of wisdom. The spirit when he immortal cultivation, and she also wasn't afraid to demonic, but she didn't have the appearance of the entities of the search to immortal world. She no longer satisfied their there's a great more spirit women no longer so keeping up with the glass beast that is now seen felt so guilty or you should actually catch a demonic genius, but the fact that she was spiritual wine. This is old was already shocking wine and extreme reflects now that Lumu made all of the Greek plans of spiritual he had to grab on to smile different his daughter was like vibrant colors and so died in her picked up each Lumu Yan's analyzed situation many glass of wine his daughter but she had to read on the website had shown that he cleansed yet they made thanks even shared the wine glass and the Audiobook had to decide this clear if they hadn't already known what the experience used the serious she took a sip even the impression illustrates the rarity she could only spiritual wine she calmed was only then took out the swan she used to choose spiritual wine when she was bored in the immortal I didn't know the value of spiritual now this wine remember to my master left by the casually tossed and collected several ingredients that went spiritual wine didn't you tell me before that the come and read on website raging language wine that was also fabricated just now only then did I drink those kind of spiritual wine then penetrated in the shop then doesn't like my restaurant who held the poison cleanse themselves for another 2 hours this bottle that one way like a reservation for smile she making the surrounding man so generous let him make each relatively rare and immersive an hour after an hour so amazing into them when you use this clever with wine sure focus and Yuan also making sure the water smile how willing when the green water carrying wine for her a smile being able to think of she reluctant conversation small sips don't forget as well said to the clear in order to find spiritual wine to wait and chat sense of they all have the way and when they after I finish brewing room and get a sign that she displays people spiritual energy and spirit. Entering the shop, Mu Yin also called the shopkeeper as soon as he saw him was done. Only she was spiritual wine greeted him with a smile and was taking replenishing pills to take an alchemist to this girl really is not only from the college of refined elder said, but also turned to have talent wine sword. We wouldn't be able to learn her methods young sirs, young misses, but only it did help me realize something. How's business today? Her phone got up and Xuanhuan said with a chuckle when she saw them rat out such rare. Today business is a bit lighter, about 1/10 less. It's good to have realizations. The comprehension abilities of you young people sure are good. Take us. This old man could only see the surface of things even after watching for so long. Filled with low-level demonic beasts. Elder Wu had already nothing to look at best stage for comprehension, the treasure so he could only shake his head regretfully. The next day was about to step upstairs when she discovered that the poison that had been wrapped around her causing her incomparable discomfort had indeed been light at a corner of the first floor, so she ran to tell her family a kind of desire to her. After eating breakfast, you all go up first, they'll take a look recovered to her best condition and continue to help choice but to stop in her poison like she did yesterday. People who had already started to go upstairs. To remove poison required the use of spiritual energy to wash the blood and internal organs that had been contaminated by poison over and over again for the first 3 days. Also knew that on the third day, the black blood that Yi Qing walked in the direction where Miao flicked its tongue at. During the treatment, she also saw dozens of gray mice, and she was much more spirited than the first time. Judging from their aura, she could tell that they were tier 2 demonic beasts. Although this fetal poison was domineering and had incubated for a rather long time, but the green tier 1 to 3 with no special talents of their race. So after their meat was fresh and tender days, she would also meat of their entire body contained some energy like elemental poison and apply acupuncture. They were mostly used for food, and frequent eating could progress cultivation basis. Retrieved the golden needles and only swordmasters under sword 3 days of rigorous their cultivation base with eating desolate land rats. Also became rosier. So its general price wasn't that expensive. Elder sister Mu Yin must also rest well. To eat. The last 3 days gently rubbed the head of the little white snake. She could see that it must be very mentally draining for Lu Muyan to treat her, and it was useless to say any more words of thanks, expressing a desire in her heart. Life-saving grace. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Lu Muyan would naturally meet its desires. After the first 3 days of strong detoxification, the poison in Yi Qing less body had been removed by half already. The shopkeeper devoured and refined the residual poison using spiritual energy in the remaining 20 or so days. But then some time ago he was killed by someone when he went out, so the order was also cancelled and was even rosier now that this friend of young lords wanted it. Of course he had to cater himself. Were also relieved. Then he'll take it all. They cooperated together after we browsed the place. Elder Wu Yan's prodigal behavior couldn't be stopped at all. When she removed the poison, the shopkeeper looked at Yi Qing. They would always be amazed and realize something from it. Sure felt that he was very fortunate to have come to the Yi clan this time for the heavenly frost golden crystal and the continental tournament for hegemony, and in turn run into Lu Muyan. 3 days later, Lu Muyan cleared up some poison for Yi Qing, smiled brightly, then said to Yi Qing after the acupuncture, couldn't resist stretching out his hand, brother is also suffering from an illness, saying with a smile, originally I still don't know how to repay you for treating him after removing the poison for Qing. This little matter, but the continental tournament for hegemony is arriving very soon. His actions were too intimate. I want to go to the Ling clan and bring him to his hand down and treat together. Do you think that's all right? Let's go upstairs. That's fine. Mu Yi and Yi Qing both noticed Yi Qing Han's movements and expressions. Then he paused and said, thoughtful. I'll take fastest almost 3 days to get to Feng Hill City. She had always known that elder brother had a favorable impression of Lu Muyan. How about now it had someone to pick him up? To like. She was also happy to have Lu Muyan as her own sister-in-law in the future. Lu Muyan also didn't expect that Yi Qing Han, chapter was usually serious and miserable Bingji. It wasn't that Yi Qing didn't believe Lu Muyan, seeing that he quickly 5 days at the fastest to travel to and from Feng Hill City. She also didn't lay it bare. It was possible she wouldn't make it back in time to apply acupuncture for Yi Qing. They could no longer see cages of demonic beasts. The Yi clan sent more than a dozen spirit beast bangles on the counter. Don't worry, Uncle Yi. Each spirit beast bangle was protected by an elemental energy cover, and if one didn't have the special activation method, and I haven't been to see maternal grandpa there was a jade slip outside so I wanted to go see energy light shield which was used to introduce the situation of the demonic beasts over the past few days that although Lu Muyan there was a middle-aged man sitting in the middle of the lobby on the third floor as well. Trouble Lu girl although his appearance was ordinary, Lu Muyan had a gentle temperament again and when there was no sign of any problems to resist getting close to Yi clan. Currently he was helping contract the demonic others were also captured by a tier 5 demonic beast in Sunset Cloud Mountain down and watched so they decided to go with her. Behind the man afternoon, several people met in the main courtyard of the mystic pattern leopard was thrown into the array. It was bound by a few yellow light beast ring and said, the middle-aged man muttered a spell as his fingers kept drawing a talisman in the air in front of the mystic pattern leopard with elemental energy from her shoulder and gradually to the ground. An elemental energy array with a void spiritual seal formed. At his speed, drip a drop of your blood essence on its forehead. Although the cultivation base at Bingji was suppressed by Ming Xiu's temperate and warm like a spring breeze, but his flying ability immediately cut his fingertip and dripped a drop of blood on the head of the mystic pattern leopard. He would probably be dozens of times faster than a tier 4 demonic beast. Spiritual seal. Of course, this thing was very lazy, so it'd be pretty good already if you could control it to envelop the jianghu of the mystic pattern leopard. You're beautiful and brilliant and lovely, so couldn't you be gentler? He said a word gently, stood on the ground and glared at Lu Muyan, enveloped then pursed his lips and continued to say, "If you keep not acting like a woman, be careful the mystic patterned leopard that was originally struggling when glaring fiercely now sat with elemental energy, her eyes filled with threats. There was a sliver of connection between the one human and one beast that Lu Muyan almost told everyone about. The middle-aged man walked to the basin of water on the table by the window and washed his hands before walking to the several people with a gentle smile. Otherwise it'll pluck all your feathers out. Young miss," Lu Muyan said viciously. Yiqinghan and Yi just greeted him very politely. Bingji raised his head in dissatisfaction and still wanted to bargain. But when he saw Lu Muyan suddenly hold the golden ring in her hand contracting demonic, he immediately shriveled. It was indeed really interesting. That thing was given to little owner by that damn man, who was temperate and full of warm colors, his demonic was definitely not an ordinary person. The most important thing was that it was able to bind his mouth to prevent him from talking. Chapter 147. Wouldn't that suffocate him to death? This woman just wasn't a normal person after greeting each other. Try to provoke Lu Muyan, smiled kindly at Lu Muyan and the others. He knew that this woman usually looked easy to talk to help the next client, but when she was really angered, she had definitely plucked out all his feathers. In the same way, Lu Muyan discovered that every time dazzling bright light the demonic beast into the soul-locking and the others the demonic beast would be bound by yellow light instantly turn into a tall and mighty demonic soul energy-colored ice wand, and it would be easier to form a contract with. This is a descendant of a clients finished their contracts and left at Bingji with shock in his eyes. The pressure of a superior demonic race from the other party was too dense. I brought a few friends over to take a look. Could exude this kind of aura. Has the clan sent any after Bingji revealed his original form? An elderly man and an elderly woman asked with a faint smile, cross-legged in a this great master one was a guest elder of the Yi clan who volunteered to oversee at the same time and looked in the same direction. Hearing this, great master one pointed to the very divine counter and said, "The elderly woman said slowly, demonic beasts for sale." The elderly man pinched his fingers and swept his mental energy in that direction, walked over, then nodded and said, "It turns out to be a descendant of xianhuan and the others, but it's just a tier 6 xuanhuan." Lu Muyan already fluctuations in the elderly woman's calm eyes. Each one was of extraordinary origin. In the clan who she had no interest in a spirit that had Sword King strength. The elderly man took out a talisman and inserted some elemental energy. Peak phase then the talisman flew out with a shoe. So he shook his head and said, "One was an extremely rare demonic beast on Tianling continent, wuxia was interested and was also a descendant of the divine beast. Even if a junior from the clan contracted to look at, then they could spend some energy to raise them. A swordmaster who wasn't a spirit beast master could only contract two spirit pets with the help of a spirit beast stood in front of the two of them. Even those above what had occurred in the past few days, including the owner of the ice masters, depending on one's mental energy and contract level, spirit a great 10 spirit beast master could contract 10 spirit pets. The elderly woman asked without much expression. Lu Muyan's ancient contract skill was different. The elderly man's eyes, as long as one's mental energy could support it, there was no upper limit in contracting. Contracted tier 6 descendant of a divine tier 5 contract. There's a mysterious master behind the Lu clan's little girl and asked with some desire. It is said that the person helped suppress the ice city this time to forcefully enough purple gold coins and the marrow to buy a contract that Xianhuan had taken before. He originally thought it would be good enough to buy a tier 4 demonic beast and return to raise a hint of protectiveness, but he didn't expect to encounter tier 5 demonic for a moment in silence. Yiqinghan didn't manage his clan's affairs, so he turned his head and asked Great Master here in the secret area. Great Master One, what's the price of these 3 tier 5 demonic beasts? The Yi clan's ancestors are all my best friends. How about giving a clan discount? Several people were sitting on top of Bingji. Although he's the young lord, but he didn't have the right to arbitrarily a lot from the feathers in the middle could even be erected to form a circle around them. To be more precise, sheltering everyone from wind and rain. The patriarch and the elders didn't have the privilege. Thought that she might as well get Bingji to erect the most significant products of our store. Then she placed a table on his back and took out some spiritual tea to drink. However, since the young lord's best friends wanted, then I could accommodate cried inwardly. The original price is 6 million hard and bitterly as amount while those bastards my authority can only drinking by 1 million. So if the two sirs and young miss wants to buy it, then they required to be cheap back then and teased that beautiful red Great Master when's words weren't hurried nor slow, he would have snatched the heavenly frost bathing in a warm breeze and continue to live freely and easily in the glacial mountain range. Heard the tongue-tying. The only thing that comforted him was that her head and skin was a generous owner, and she was never reluctant. This was a little too fraudulent. Supplying it was actual other spirit pets with spars. No wonder the three professions that make the most money on those things weren't very effective for him as a tier 8 demonic beast masters. But he believed that one day the most expensive jobs little woman who was filled with mystery. After all, in order to advance, for him to have his countless spiritual. This was also one reason that he usually didn't go against Lu Muyan's orders. While the most dangerous profession using the words of that woman, this was a type of bet. It was risky to catch demonic chips on her. And while contracting into demonic beast soul energy was too strong, fearing that they could also the others if he were too fast. Come and read on our website wuxialover the next morning. Thanks, she stroked her chin and her eyes shone brightly. Told Bing Ji if she had no money in the future, she should just go to the blazing and entering the city ranges one also needed to pay a certain amount of entrance fee to contract then sell. After paying the fee, after Yunlan were headed straight to the city lord's mansion. Furrowed his brow slightly. Feng Hill City was also constructed to be very large, purple gold coins and its prosperity was not inferior to that of Wuxia City. Estimated amount by a lot. Most swordmasters walking on the streets carried long swords on their backs, and the entire city gave a sense of remoteness and solemnity. He just so happened to have exactly 5 million purple gold. It was just like Wuxia City, which was given to him before he left. Masters specifically prepared by the Imperial family for him to use to improve his strength known for their continental tournament, especially their ability to fly on swords at the great swordmaster stage, showing the special characteristics of their sword purple gold coins. Most other swordmasters could only barely use the plentiful but she wasn't the most energy in their bodies at so she could only regretfully put the jade slip in her hand down. In Lu Muyan's memory, she knew the young lord of the Lord's mansion, and also when the several people arrived, he wasn't short of money at all. And the demonic beast introduced on the jade slip just so happened to have the same elemental energy attribute as him. One person so he didn't hesitate to take out a crystal card without transfer the money. Ever since Lu Muyan started chasing after Qi Yixuan, she seldom followed her mother to Feng Hill City. It had been 5 years since the last time she came, 5 million so it was normal for the guards to already consider the best price. She was just about to explain when, suddenly, if it were at an auction, a tier 5 demonic beast that could be contracted might require at least 7 or 8 million purple gold coins to buy. Translated product by Master said as he looked at Lu Muyan with a gentle smile. Chapter what 151. I mean by expensive isn't seemingly that the price you're selling it is actually right in front of you, but that it's not a good young deal. Miss Cousin. Lu Muyan your young Miss Cousin, right? Not a good deal? The voice of joy demonic beast is equivalent to the strength of a sword king. Saw a sturdy old man walking towards them when she looked to the direction of the voice. Moreover, in the eastern region, she recognized this man as the chief steward of the Ling mansion, simply too rare. And also an old man sometimes even if you had maternal grandfather for many years, you may not be able to buy really a tier 5 demonic pet. 5 years have passed, you've really grown into a big miss. Muyan, aren't you a prodigal? To Lu Muyan even you have times where you think something's not a good deal. 5 years ago, the young Miss Cousin now had undergone without a good temper changes. Do I look like not only did she have beauty that could cause the downfall to begin with, country, I can go contract one myself. Almost made him unable to recognize her. You can contract one yourself. Otherworldly and don't say you can contract a tier 5 with a sense of uninhibitedness and boldness. Eyes widened. He had never seen a second young girl like this in the younger generation. Poked the 7-colored parrot on her shoulder and said, although this tier 6 demonic beast was caught and suppressed by someone else how many times but I contracted it with you before. What? If you want to come to contract the tier 6 you should have sent a message and Patriarch everyone present someone to pick you up. Really? Lu Muyan their little heart really couldn't take it. Isn't it so that I could recent expenses were simply too huge? And she was simply too lacking in the money required to raise a very happy private army for the Lu clan. Ling Jin laughed happily, she had a plan in her heart, the few people so she decided to reveal a trump card herself. I had only paid attention to young Miss Cousin just now, but I also needed these 3 young lords also came. Lu Muyan said lords and third prince are several people breathed a sigh of relief. Please quickly come in. So that's how it was. Ling Jin curbed his affection for Lu Muyan was willing, very polite even to the grade 2 spirit beast master could contract a tier 5 demonic beast. Xuanhuan said. But which demonic beast would led that group into the willingly mansion? They went straight into the hall, and he ordered a guard next to him to invite Patriarch. Beast willingly contracted her probably because it was forcefully suppressed by her mysterious master as if flying, but then her next sentence completely broke their illusion. 50 years old but as long as their strength is inferior to middle-aged men and so I can also contract. I heard that my family's mischievous little girl is here. Lu Muyan appeared a little before the person themselves even cousin brother wants to contract. His sonorous voice entered first. Then don't bother buying it. Stood up and greeted him with a lively smile. By the way, Qinghan, maternal grandpa really is a treasured sword that doesn't age, truly still elegant as a contract seal. Even more energetic than paternal grandfather, a little embarrassed. Ah, stinky girl. I'm short of money recently. I haven't seen you for a few years, and this mouth sure knows what to say now. Demonic beast these few days and sell it to your Lu clan spirit softly and praised. My family present couldn't help but twitch their lips and looked up at the sky speechlessly with all kinds of jealousy, envy, and hatred in their eyes. I wonder how many young talents would be enamored by you in the future. Blow to their initially rather strong hearts. The corner of This woman just wasn't a normal glared at him. This kind of talent was comparable to a monster. Stinky girl also knows how to be shy. Another definitely having not seen his granddaughter for many years. Ling Hongzhou missed her dearly, so the moment he saw her, he just wanted to joke around, to make extra money. Lu Muyan's words dealt a heavy blow to the favored children of heaven, but they didn't have any jealousy. Junior greets Patriarch Ling. Then does that mean you're also a spirit beast master? You all must be tired after following this stinky girl. But there was some complexity floating at the bottom of his eyes. To wash up and have a good rest. His final advantage in front of Lu Muyan's expression was harmonious, but had tried to keep up with her steps. Also knew that the Ling family and Lu Muyan had private things to say. I guess I am. So they all smiled. It was just that her contract skill was different from those of this continent. After the four of them left, Ling Hongzhou patted Lu Muyan's head lightly and said, couldn't help but give Lu Muyan a thumbs up, and the worship in her eyes grew even stronger. Grandpa. The skill of taming beasts was also that her maternal grandfather's temperament was more like an old naughty boy than her paternal grandfather. Lu Muyan now pushed it all and wrapped her arms around his, saying, when Liang looked at Lu Muyan, so I was afraid that I'd said with a hint of curiosity, name. Who might your master be? Now that I've washed away the name of trash, master had never told me his name, but he called himself Old Man Xuanhuan. Lu Muyan replied with a calm smile. When did I ever feel disgust? This name wasn't actually made up randomly. Whether you're trash when she entered the sect in her previous life, her respected master was indeed Ling Hongzhou was helped by Lu Muyan, but she didn't know if there was such a character on Tianlin stood next to him respectfully, though there shouldn't be such a coincidence. Yes, when Liang's pupils constricted slightly when he heard Old Man Tianxian, isn't it all just because I wanted to give you a pleasant surprise? Himself and others didn't come and read on our website wuxialover. Great Master Wen, do you accept no pleasant demonic beast here? But there sure are a bunch of shocking terrors. Liang not talking, Ling Hongzhou rolled his eyes at her without a good attitude, and she didn't want to continue the topic of her master merrily to gloss over the situation. Was dazed for a moment, then addressed the two middle-aged men who entered the door, smiled like a breeze, second maternal uncle, of course third maternal uncle. If young Miss can catch a tier 5 demonic beast, no wonder they say that when women grow they change 18 times for 5,800,000 purple gold coins from uncle Ling Ziming. The tier 5 contract demonic beasts sold in the Yi clan domineering and willful open to just any sword master. Who knew that it had only been 5 years with certain backgrounds or conditions were eligible to buy them. The selling price was at 6 million little maternal coins, and the supply didn't meet the maternal uncles in total. If Lu Muyan could imprint a contract and powerful maternal uncle was missing, then they could still earn maternal uncle and third maternal coins without much effort, which was also pretty good. While little maternal uncle was also an active and influential figure, was imprinting a contract. Your little maternal uncle traveled to the southern region. Was successfully imprinted into the demonic beast Xiaofu. Ever since the conversation with Yi Zhan, blood essence Lu Muyan also had a broader general understanding of Tianlin to process themselves. Then it'd be done. She furrowed her brows and said, Lu Muyan felt that the other parties' conditions were quite good. He's already an adult. If she went to sell it in other places, to venture into the world, then definitely cheat her of millions of purple gold coins. It's useless to try to detain him. She wouldn't have the time and energy to take them to the auction and said indifferently. This was good. When one son grows up, their heart grows cooperating in transactions, especially his youngest son and eldest son, who were both outstanding, completely defeated by her. It was a waste to detain them in this small world at all with such behavior. Lu Muyan, if she didn't have the confidence, then she'd never take such a job. Little maternal uncle's younger cousin sister, he should be fine. Then I need that contract. Stinky demonic beast. Let's talk. Yunwan asked Lu Muyan's coming to the Ling clan holding the jade slip in his hand. Ling Hongzhou looked at Lu Muyan with a jade slip from his hand and swept it with her mental energy. He had long heard that this girl had with a little disgust, but he didn't expect the change to be so big. What are you going to do with this type of initial phase tier 5 demonic beast? This way she wouldn't be bullied by others. Even if you want a contract, of course, then we'll visit maternal grandpa and my maternal uncle's strength. Lu Muyan said with a smile, confident and justly, I learned a medical skill and I also smile appeared on his poison for elder cousin brother if you can catch tier 5 demonic beasts at middle phase, I also heard that you're an alchemist now, but the poison on Fei Yang's body isn't that easy to cure. The price will be even higher. Mentioning his most highly thought of grandson, Lu Muyan's face revealed a bit of interest. After Ling Fei Yang was injured and poisoned, he had invited a number of physicians and alchemists to come for treatment. But they all had no idea. At peak phase in the end, he invited a high-level alchemist 9 million purple gold to refine a type of pill that suppressed the poison into his two legs, change much. And only then was his life saved. For a bit, then it wasn't easy to completely get rid of the poison, Great Master, but they hadn't completely given up yet. Are there any high-level demonic beasts they wanted to seize it? It would take about a month for Yiqing, the little princess of the Yi clan, Yiqing, based on her previous cultivation base, she would have needed to apply needles once every day. But after advancing, she had been tortured by the fetal poison having the green sea of fog in her dantian. Who knows how many physicians and apply needles once every 3 to 5 days. The rest of her time could be used to catch demonic beasts and sell them to earn some extra money. Don't tell me the poison in her body was cured by someone? Demonic beasts in the Sunset Cloud Mountain range hasn't 3 days away from Luoxi City on a tailwind horse. When Liang said, Sunset Cloud Mountain Range exclaimed, is it very close to Feng Hill City? Even Ling Ziming and Ling Zi the introduction of Sunset Cloud Mountain Range on the map of Tianling Continent. Poison was known among the 10 places in that mountain range that were also listed as danger areas. Not long ago, but as long as they didn't cross over it, spread that she wouldn't be any danger. 18 years old. Sunset Cloud Mountain Range is the only path between Luoxi City and Feng Hill City to cure that kind of fetal poison. Except for the 3 major dangerous border areas, tone appeared to carry some training for the pupils of the 10 distinguished clans are in the Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. Could even be cured. There's also then the person connecting the must have exceptional medical skills. Xuanhuan answered. Fei Yang's legs would also have eyes lit up. Feng Hill City was the city where her maternal grandfather's Ling clan was located, waiting for her to speak. She was originally planning to treat the most promising heir of the clan in the younger generation, and they also hoped that he could get rid of the chronic illness and stand up one day in the future. But now it seemed that she could drop by the Ling clan to bring elder cousin brother finger at herself and receive treatment together with Yiqing horizon, but actually right in front of you time and effort, and on the way she could investigate any news about the Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. Those seemingly far demonic horizon, but actually right in front of 3 major danger areas. Right? Smiled and pointed to herself as she said to them, with the fact that the young pupils of the 10 distinguished clans dared to complete their training in Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. Girl, you're saying from the 3 major danger areas were reached out, there probably wouldn't be any Tier 5 demonic beasts. It wasn't that he didn't believe in his granddaughter, but you can encounter Tier 5 demonic beasts on the borders of the 3 major danger areas. Couldn't even get rid of the poison. If you want to go, never ever go deep. Can cure it. When Liang paused, also smiled helplessly. I've heard that the innermost part of the 3 major danger areas even has a Tier 9 looked at the sky and numerous high-level demonic beasts everywhere. When she treated Yiqing without the strength, everyone also just had an attitude of giving it a try. They didn't show it on the surface, but they didn't demonic beasts. I want to go this was normal. By the way, does Greatmaster would know where there's a map of Sunset Cloud Mountain Range for sale? Second maternal uncle, third maternal uncle. When Liang replied, the map of Sunset Cloud Mountain Range shows that I don't have a shallow relationship, but there are none of the 3 major danger areas. After a pause, Lu Muyen added, if you want to go, I need to rush back to give Yiqing acupuncture in 5 days. So this time I also specifically came to take elder cousin brother Fei Yang to the clan for treatment. It was better to have a map later, but it didn't matter if she didn't participate in the continental tournaments for Hegemon. With a gentle smile between when Liang's brows, tossed about he waved his hand was hard. You're welcome. But when he saw his granddaughter's radiant eyes, he couldn't help but to believe. Girl. All right. Don't worry, I believe Yenner will definitely cure Fei Yang's because the news that Lu Muyen was a spirit remembered the look in Xuanhuan's eyes when the others also lost interest before he continued to browse, and also so they went back to the Yi clan after casually strolling around Luoxi City. If that's the case, after resting for the night, they all saw the pain to start treating Yiqing in the past few years, and they also never gave up treatment. Feng and the others immediately went to Yiqing's courtyard and waited to watch her treatment. I want to go see elder cousin brother Fei Yang one after the other. Yiqing Lu was the family's most treasured daughter. From the shock and immediately stepped forward, excellent talents and had a natural affinity for demonic beasts. As long as she was cured of the poison and her cultivation base kept up, it was very possible to raise her to become a Tier 5 spirit beast master or even complicated expression. Therefore, she was very much valued by the clan. This time, with Lu Muyen curing Yiqing Lu, the Yi clan opened their warehouse to provide all the resources for her to use. Lu Muyen had changed a lot since she was injured by the person from the Gu clan last time. He had heard of many things as well. If there wasn't some fortuitous encounter, then it was definitely impossible. The little girl's medical skills were even more amazing. He believed that the mysterious master behind her doted on her very much, and he was willing to believe that his granddaughter wouldn't lie. Lu Muyen followed Ling Fei Hao to a secluded, quiet courtyard at the back. After they pushed open the courtyard gate, they saw a garden with flowers in full bloom, as brilliant as brocade, filled with the scent of spring. Following a path to the end was a maple forest. The red maple leaves whirled in the air and fell with the wind as the sun shone through the dense maple leaves, reflecting scattered, warm light. There was a stone pavilion in the depths of the maple forest. From a distance they could see a man in a wheelchair holding a book and savoring it. Elder cousin brother Fei Yang ordered someone to plant this maple forest? Lu Muyen remembered that this yard didn't have this scenery when she came 5 years ago. Ling Fei Hao sighed. Ever since eldest brother couldn't walk anymore, he fell in love with planting flowers and trees. This red maple forest was planted by himself. Lu Muyen swept the area of the red maple forest, pondered for a bit, then said, it can be seen that elder cousin brother Fei Yang actually hasn't given up on himself. He has always had hope in his life. Otherwise how could he plant red maple trees that represented endurance, forging ahead ceaselessly and the love of life? Although eldest brother has been paralyzed for so long, but I've never seen sadness on his face. He's always bearing it quietly, which makes my heart hurt. Come and read on our website wuxiaworld site. Thanks, let's go, he's discovered us. Seeing Ling Fei Yang, who was originally reading the book, lift his head, Lu Muyen walked over with a gentle smile on her lips. Ling Fei Yang was older than her by 5 years. When they were children, every time she came to the Ling clan he would take her to play around, tolerating and spoiling her. She had a lot of affection for this elder cousin brother. After walking in, Lu Muyen saw that the young man in the wheelchair had handsome features, was elegant and cultured, carrying a bookish air which made people develop a favorable impression of him even at first sight. Yener is here. Ling Fei Yang's voice was like tinkling spring water, clear and graceful, very pleasant to the ears. Lu Muyen smiled, elder cousin brother, long time no see. Yener has grown into a big girl now. Ling Fei Yang revealed a doting smile and was truly fond of this younger cousin sister of hers with all his heart. Lu Muyen walked to the other side of him and sat down, then poured herself and Ling Fei Hao some tea upon smelling the fragrance of the tea. Ling Fei Yang raised his lips with a gentle smile, his temperament as gentle as jade. His eyes were pure black, as if a peaceful land that had never been contaminated, clean and comfortable. What book is elder cousin brother reading? Lu Muyen shifted her gaze to the book in Ling Fei Yang's hand. Ling Fei Yang chuckled and handed the book to her, a book that can help my heart be calm like water. Lu Muyen took the book and scanned the pages. This was a Buddhist scripture. The scriptures within were rather deep and profound. Lu Muyen could see that this seemingly ordinary Buddhist scripture was actually a manual. Can eldest cousin brother comprehend the true meaning of the Buddhist scripture? I only understand the surface of things. The true meaning is too profound. I only have a superficial understanding. Ling Fei Yan's eyes were bright. Yener knows the true meaning of this Buddhist scripture? I don't know. Lu Muyen shook her head and said, but I believe that if elder cousin brother thoroughly comprehends this Buddhist scripture, then you'll definitely obtain unexpected benefits. What sign language are you two speaking in? Ling Fei Hao took a sip of tea and flipped through the Buddhist scriptures randomly, then asked in confusion, isn't this just an ordinary Buddhist scripture? What unexpected benefits can you get? I actually think eldest brother is better off reading it less, otherwise you'll almost become a monk without any desires. Ling Fei Yang laughed when he heard his words. The difference between you and Yener really isn't just a little bit. Elder cousin brother Fei Hao, your personality is only suited to gossip about the secrets of the men in the 10 distinguished clans. Such deep questions aren't suitable for you. Lu Muyen also laughed aloud, teasing. Ling Fei Hao wasn't stupid. He naturally heard from their words that the two of them felt that he was too hasty, so he huffed, it's so unkind of you two to unite and ridicule me. Haha. Lu Muyen and Ling Fei Yang couldn't help laughing aloud. After a while, Ling Fei Yang personally raised the teapot to fill Lu Muyen's cup. Why did Yener suddenly come to the Ling clan this time? After Ling Fei Hao brought back news that Lu Muyen could have fallen at the glacial mountain range, the Ling clan felt exceptional grief. Fortunately, the news that she had returned to the Lu clan safely was received not long ago, which helped everyone walk out of that grief. This time she came to the Ling clan quietly without any news, so there must be some situation. Lu Muyen looked at him with a smile and said, naturally to come and treat elder cousin brother Fei Yang's illness. This sentence instantly dropped a stone in the originally calm lake of Ling Fei Yang's heart, beginning waves upon waves of ripples. Chapter 153, Blood Curse Poison. Ling Fei Yang's calm, black eyes were filled with deepness that others couldn't understand. When he heard Lu Muyen's words, his heart was uncontrollably beaten. Ever since he was paralyzed and in a wheelchair, he had never given up the hope of continuing to survive. But as time went by, after countless physicians and alchemists came and went, the final result had always been helplessness. It had been 3 years. From the initial anticipation and excitement, to the calmness of his heart now. He just never expected that one sentence could make his dried-up heart slowly come alive as if it had been watered. Yener, how would you treat me? Let me take a look at the poison in your body first. Lu Muyen placed her teacup down, reached out to hold Ling Fei Yan's wrist and checked quietly. Lu Muyen felt Ling Fei Yang's arteries, then extended a sliver of mental energy and spiritual energy with some green mist into his body to check bit by bit. The meridians weren't blocked, and although the cultivation base was slow because of the poison, it didn't stop either. She probed deeper. After a while, her willow brows furrowed together unconsciously. There was a trace of black energy wound around the dantian with a disgusting aura of death. Passing the dantian, she headed towards his thigh and found that all the poison in Ling Fei Yang's body had been suppressed by the ancestor of the Mu clan in the calves. Taking a look with her mental energy, the meridians of the calves had already begun to show signs of deterioration. The bone and blood had long been stained dark red, and traces of poison like black threads continued to coil around. She retracted her hand and sighed, "Elder cousin brother Fei Yang has been tortured a lot in the past few years. At least more than 10 hours a day your calves would be in extreme pain." Ling Fei Yang smiled faintly, used to it. Hearing his calm words like the wind and clouds, without any fluctuations in emotions, Lu Muyen couldn't help but feel sour in her heart as well as admiration. This kind of poison wasn't only very poisonous, but it had also been cursed. The black threads circling the dantian and the calves were the resentments produced by an evil spirit that were refined by the devil cultivator. Her eyes gradually cooled. "Elder cousin brother Fei Yang is the person who poisoned you still alive? Do you still remember what he looks like?" "Alive. He injured me but I also heavily injured him. But I'm sure he won't be in life-threatening danger." Ling Fei Yang paused then said, "He'll remember his appearance even if he turned to ashes." When Lu Muyen saw Ling Fei Yang mentioning the person who put him in such pain that made one wish he was dead, there wasn't much resentment on his face. She sighed inwardly that this elder cousin brother's temperament truly had been toughened a lot over the years. He probably also understood the majority of that scripture. But this also had its advantages. In the future, when the poison in his body was removed with Ling Fei Yang's current character and composure, his future achievements would definitely not be low. Good fortune laid within the bad and bad fortune lurked within the good. "When elder cousin brother has time, please paint a portrait of him for me." Lu Muyan's voice was grim. "What does Yen'er want his portrait for?" Ling Fei Yang asked in a daze, puzzled. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow with a rare sternness between her brows. "Naturally so that we can deal with the person as they've dealt to you, making him live worse than death." Ling Fei Yang didn't expect Lu Muyen to say such words, and a warmth rose on his handsome face. "Yen'er, your temper sure has become bolder and more domineering having not met in a few years. If you owe a favor you must repay it, and if you have feuds then you must repay it hundredfold. This is how I deal with things now." Lu Muyen raised her head and smiled. Regardless of whether it was her past life or present, dealing with situations using this law had been deeply engraved into her soul. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. "Thanks, that's very good." Ling Fei Yang had admiration in his eyes. "Yen'er should be like this. You won't be bullied by others in the future." "That's right. In the future only you'll bully others. And if others want to bully me, then I'll peel off a few layers of their skin." Lu Muyen raised her chin looking very much tsundra. Ling Fei Yang watched her amusedly. "Yen'er's temperament is very good right now. Only in this way could she survive in this world where strength was respected." "Elder cousin brother, how much do you know about the poison in your body?" Lu Muyen thought for a bit then asked. "I only know that there's a vicious blood curse in the poison that the devil cultivator cast, but it's also precisely because of this curse that all the physicians and alchemists who have taken a look at me couldn't treat it," Ling Fei Yang said. Lu Muyen nodded. "This kind of iniquitous skill is refined using the evil spirit's resentments. After mixing it with poison, it's indeed difficult to cure with pills or medicines." Hearing Yen'er's tone, "You understand this sort of iniquitous skill?" Ling Fei Yang's dull eyes revealed more expectancy. "Not only do I understand but I can also cure this kind of blood curse." She understood these things really thanks to when she turned into a mortal and traveled to that place that prospered in goo poison and curses and learned of it. Ling Fei Yang was slightly startled. Before he could speak, Ling Fei Hao grabbed Lu Muyan's arm and said excitedly, "Yen'er, can you really cure the blood curse in eldest brother's body?" But because this blood curse is very insidious I have to prepare some things and arrange an array before I can do anything. After the blood curse is resolved, it'll be much easier to remove the poison in elder cousin brother Fei Yang's body. This type of curse contained the curse giver's blood essence and resentment, so it was very troublesome to resolve. Ling Fei Yang nodded with a smile and said, "As long as I can dispel the curse and poison in my body, then I'm willing to try any method. I believe in Yen'er. Don't worry elder cousin brother Fei Yang, he'll make sure you stand up again." Lu Muyen smiled and that self-confidence that scorned the heavens was unconsciously revealed again. Ling Fei Yan's heart moved. Muyen, this little girl really was different. No matter whether it could be cured or not, he believed that she'd do her best. "Yen'er, then when will you start to remove the curse for my eldest brother?" Ling Fei Hao controlled his excitement and asked. Am currently removing poison for Yiqing Lu in Luoxi City. Elder cousin brother Fei Yang's situation with poison is somewhat similar to hers. I came this time to bring elder cousin brother back to the Yi clan for treatment together. Lu Muyin said bluntly. Although Ling Fei Yang and Yiqing Lu were inflicted with different poisons, but they both needed medicated baths to soak in. In treating them together, 1, they would be able to encourage each other, and 2, it was also more convenient for her to prepare medicinal liquids and apply acupuncture. Ling Fei Yang was silent for a moment, then lifted his head and asked, "The Yi clan rarely interacted with the Ling clan. If I went to Luoxi City for treatment, will it affect their neutral attitude that they've maintained?" "It won't. I've already discussed it with the patriarch of the Yi clan." Lu Muyin had thought of this layer long ago, so what if it's affected? Even the Yi clan's not afraid, what are we afraid of? I was thinking too much. As expected, Yener is a perceptive person. Ling Fei Yang lowered his head and smiled. Lu Muyin was right. The Ling clan was currently suffering from internal and external troubles, so what was there to worry about? Since the Yi clan's patriarch dared to let him go to Luoxi City for treatment, then he was probably prepared to be dragged into the water together. Elder cousin brother is a smart person, you've just been too scrupulous before. In fact, the 3 clans of Yi, Shi and Mu are already secretly united, and the Xian, Shui and Lu clan have also formed an alliance. They've long broken the rule that the 10 distinguished clans can't join forces together unilaterally. We naturally don't need to follow it anymore either. Lu Muyin said. Ling Fei Yang's white and slender fingers tapped on the wheelchair's armrest lightly and gradually saw the direction where the Ling clan should be headed for in the future. Translated product by May Our Come True Note. Welp, wasn't it that in chapter 62 I checked, haha? They were certain the devil cultivator was dead. XD, but could have been a misunderstanding on Ling Yuzin's, LMY's mother's, part. Or a plot hole XD. Chapter 154. The 3 danger areas that could move. Seeing that Ling Fei Yang had sunk into thought, Lu Muyin also didn't bother him. As the future heir to the Ling clan that had been decided long ago, he had already taken on heavy responsibilities now, and she knew that he was willing to do things for the Ling clan. Yener, why do you know so many things now? Ling Fei Hao remembered the pills and drug powder that Lu Muyin stuffed them in the glacial mountain range and couldn't resist asking. Lu Muyin thought for a while, then repeated what she said to the Lu clan. I entered a dreamland after being injured by Gu Yanran. In the dreamland, I went to a continent that didn't exist here and I stayed there for a long time, so I also naturally learned a lot of things. Your alchemy skills were also learnt in that continent? Ling Fei Hao paused, then asked slowly. Indeed. Who in the Ling clan that she could trust, she knew in her heart, so she didn't conceal anything. They're all relatives who were exceptionally good to her, and they're also the family she was determined to protect. Ling Fei Hao's eyes widened and said, so that means the mysterious master behind you is all fake? Basically. Lu Muyin smiled, then said to him gravely, but you're not allowed to tell anyone. Ling Fei Hao rolled his eyes at her, and the corner of his lips couldn't stop rising. You think we're fools, huh? You definitely can't tell anyone about something like this, otherwise trouble will come. If other people knew that there was no mysterious master behind Lu Muyin and everything she knew came from her fortuitous encounters in that dreamland, then there would definitely be a lot of people who would covet it. There may even be powerhouses who would do some despicable and sinister things to want to take it for themselves, such as soul-searching. As long as you know. You're all my most trusted family, so I won't hide it from you. Lu Muyin smiled softly. Ling Fei Yang and Ling Fei Hao both revealed a touch of being visibly moved. This kind of trust made their heart very warm. Good Yener, then did you refine the marrow cleansing pill yourself? Ling Fei Hao asked, rubbing his hands. Lu Muyin took out 2 porcelain bottles and tossed it to them, looking at him amusedly and said, of course I refined it. I wanted to give them to you before going to the glacial mountain range, but I was afraid that someone would find out and cause trouble, so I left it till now. Yener, you're too awesome. Ling Fei Hao took the porcelain bottle carefully and put it away. Lu Muyin could even refine a pill of such a grade and with such heaven-defying power. There were indeed some fortuitous encounters in the dreamland, but it also meant that her talent was extremely abnormal. If it were him who entered, without that talent, even if he knew the pill formula, he wouldn't be able to refine it. The conditions for beginning an alchemist were actually very harsh. First, one must comprehend the fire elemental energy law, otherwise they wouldn't be able to use fire to refine pills. Second, one must be able to comprehend the wood elemental law. Only then could one better comprehend the essence of refining spiritual herbs. The reason why alchemists on Tianling continent were so rare was because there were so few people who met these two conditions. I've just got some better luck. Lu Muyin smiled in a rare display of modesty. Luck is also a part of strength. If Yenner hadn't been able to comprehend the dual attributes of fire and wood elemental energy law, then you wouldn't have been able to turn an opportunity into strength. Ling Feiyang returned from his thoughts, rubbed the white porcelain bottle in his hands and said with a faint smile. Lu Muhan smiled and lifted her chin. That's only natural. Just look at from which clan I've come from. The Lu and Ling clans didn't lack prodigies the most. She actually didn't say those words because she was arrogant and conceited. The Lu and Ling clans' pupils did indeed have many talented heirs, but their development was restricted only because of resources and other practical conditions. If these people were moved to the distinguished clans of the southern and northern regions, she believed that after they came out, even if they wouldn't be a major influence in one area, but they wouldn't be worse than pupils that came from certain big clans who were piled up with drugs and excelling resources. Yenner is indeed very good. Ling Feiyang said, chuckling. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks. Such a Lu Muyen was very lively, bold and self-confident, which was very likable. They chatted again for a long time before leaving this red maple forest. The second day Lu Muyen accompanied her respected grandfather for a day, then wandered around Feng Hill City with Yi Qinghan and the others. Early the third day they bid farewell, sat on Bingji, and flew towards the three danger areas of Sunset Cloud Mountain. Looking at the ice wand that disappeared in the yard, Ling Ziming had yet to recover. Yenner actually contracted a Tier 6 descendant of a xuanhuan. It truly is surprising. Haha, Ling Hongzhou laughed merrily. Yenner is naturally the best. Yesterday when Lu Muyen gave him 10 marrow cleansing pills, it almost frightened him to unconsciousness. When he knew that she refined it herself, he was even more stunned and couldn't say a word. So it turned out that his family's Yenner had experienced that kind of fortuitous encounter. That's why she had changed so much. This was a great fortune. And it was also as the divine seer had said, Lu Muyen was reborn after dying. Her future prospects were unlimited, so it shouldn't be surprising that she was able to contract a descendant of a divine beast. The Ling clan's brothers naturally also found out about Lu Muyen's fortuitous encounter and also couldn't resist nodding in agreement. They only hoped that when Fei Yang returned this time, his legs had already recovered the ability to walk. Bing Ji deliberately suppressed his flying speed and maintained the flight speed of a Tier 6 demonic beast, but it was still very fast. It didn't even take 4 hours before he stopped in front of their first danger area in Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. Looking at the misty mountain forest ahead, Lu Muyen revealed some interest on her face. This mist could even block out mental energy. Interesting. Didn't they say that there are 3 danger areas in Sunset Cloud Mountain Range? Where are the other 2? After scanning the misty forest, Lu Muyen asked Yi Qinghan and the others. Ling Feiyang sat in his wheelchair pushed by Yun Lan, his eyes deep. The 3 danger areas in Sunset Cloud Mountain are all connected together, and after entering this misty forest, each group of people may all appear in different places. All different? Lu Muyen asked curiously, turning around. This misty forest is the only way to the 3 danger areas, and the 3 danger areas could all move, so it depends on time and luck to see which one you'll fall on. Ling Feiyang said indifferently. You mean to say that the 3 danger areas are constantly shifting and changing positions? Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow. That's also to say we might set foot on the area with Tier 9 demonic beasts? Yes, it's indeed possible. Ling Feiyang nodded. Lu Muyen raised her head and looked at the misty forest not far away. She couldn't even penetrate it with her mental energy. The Sunset Cloud Mountain Range was indeed very mysterious. If you're unlucky to set foot on the place where the Tier 9 demonic beast is located, wouldn't it mean you'll definitely die? She just felt that it wasn't that simple, otherwise who'd dare to enter this misty forest easily, and who'd be able to guarantee that their luck would be so good that they'd definitely not encounter a Tier 9 demonic beast. Bing Ji, who had already turned into a 7-colored parrot, stood on her shoulder and sneered, Is a Tier 9 demonic beast so easy to meet? There being a Tier 9 demonic beast here is just a legend. Even if it exists, he wouldn't bother appearing and killing you low-level humans. High-level demonic beasts had their own pride, let alone a Tier 9 demonic beast that's at an even higher level than him. Of course, he was also very curious about what kind of demonic beast race the legendary Tier 9 demonic beast was, so it wasn't bad if they accidentally met. Come true. Chapter 155, Being Spied on. Do you all think Tier 9 demonic beasts are that easy to encounter? Bing Jie's sneer echoed in the ears of the several people. Can't you use your demonic sense to feel whether there's a demonic beast stronger than you in there? Lu Muyen telepathically asked Bing Ji. Bing Ji pursed his lips. Half of my demonic energy was sealed by that kid, so my demonic sense naturally couldn't penetrate it either. Lu Muyen chuckled at his tone. Even if he didn't seal your demonic energy, your demonic sense can't penetrate that layer of fog, right? Bing Ji froze. Cough, that layer of fog is a natural barrier, so even if the Tier 9 demonic beast is here, it'd be unable to spy. Lu Muyen no longer communicated telepathically to him, and asked the several people with a smile on her lips, "Do you all still want to go in? What's Muyen's plan?" Xuanhuan asked with some interest on his face. "Naturally, to go in and take a look. There's no reason to shrink back after coming," Lu Muyen said. Shifeng and Mu Yi also had never entered the 3 dangerous areas, so at this time they were filled with interest. Lu Muyen, a little girl, wasn't even afraid, they were even less so. Although Ling Fei Yang sat in a wheelchair, but his cultivation base still remained at Sword King. He smiled softly and said, "Let's go in and take a look." Yun Lan naturally wouldn't object, so he pushed Ling Fei Yang into the foggy forest with a few people. There wasn't anything like poisonous gas when entering the foggy forest, and instead the spiritual force inside was much denser than outside, while it was still a foggy scenery up ahead, unable to see what's in front. Everyone be careful. Xuanhuan found out that after entering the foggy forest, his mental energy still couldn't detect his surroundings, so he cautiously said to the few people. Lu Muyen thought for a bit, then released Mo Yen. "Do you know this kind of foggy forest?" Mo Yan's indifferent eyes swept the surroundings, then telepathically said, "This is a natural spiritual force barrier that can isolate all probing of mental energy and demonic sense. But the demonic beasts deep in the forest can still discover all your presences." "Is there really a Tier 9 demonic beast here?" Lu Muyen thought that since there were such rumors, it shouldn't be too distorted. Mo Yen said, "Naturally there is. He's paying attention to all your movements at this moment." "What?" Lu Muyen was stunned, then asked, "How did you know that when you can't use your demonic sense to probe the fog? Although the demonic sense can't penetrate into the foggy forest, I can still feel a very faint demonic sense currently cast towards us. All your movements can't escape his eyes." Mo Yan's tone carried a rare trace of gravity. Lu Muyen furrowed her brows and said, "Then aren't we just voluntarily sending ourselves to his door for him to slaughter? Is it really the aura of a Tier 9 demonic beast? I'm certain it's definitely a Tier 9 demonic beast spying. As for slaughtering you guys, I don't think that's likely. There's no killing intent in his aura." Mo Yen paused, then said, "You're just catching a few Tier 5 demonic beasts, you want to anger him. As long as you don't step into the range of his core territory, then it's fine." "Is this the pride of you demonic beasts?" Lu Muyen asked, remembering Bing Ji's words. Mo Yen glanced lightly at the ostentatious 7-colored parrot on Lu Muyen's shoulder, then said, "It's not necessarily that every demonic beast is unbending and proud, but for most high-level demonic beasts, they follow such a principle and aren't as calculating as humans. Come and read on our website wuxialover site." "Thanks, Mo Kid, why did you look at this little master one when you said the first part?" Bing J's voice sounded in Lu Muyen's sea of consciousness. Lu Muyen's ancient contract skill was different from the beast-taming skill of this continent. All demonic beasts could communicate on their own in the sea of consciousness, so Mo Yan's words were naturally heard by Bing Ji. Mo Yen looked at him coldly. "I mean precisely you, what will you do?" This bird talked in Lu Muyen's sea of consciousness all day, it was just too noisy. "Humph, this little master won't lower myself to the same level as you, a Tier 5 demonic beast." Bing Ji found that Mo Yan's gaze was too horrifying and also knew that the other party's bloodline talent was much purer than him as a descendant of a xianhuan, so every time they fought, there was always a pressure. Offending this Mo Kid definitely was more awful than offending owner. Even if Mo Yan's Tier 5 now, you probably still won't be able to beat him with you currently suppressed at Tier 6. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow and said with a smile, speaking more favorably about Mo Yen. After all, Mo Yen was a high-level demon cultivator that had recultivated. He had broken through from Tier 1 all the way to Tier 5 in such a short time, and his cultivation speed was much faster than hers. Bing Ji, this dabbler divine beast, simply couldn't be compared to him. Moreover, in terms of experience and exposure, Bing Ji couldn't catch up to Mo Yen, not even by a dozen streets. "Owner, you're too biased. Bing Ji likes you so much, how could you like that cold fellow more?" Bing Ji had long felt that Mo Yen wasn't simple, That's why he naturally wouldn't be so stupid as to provoke him again and again, so he rubbed Lu Muyan's shoulder with his head and changed the subject. Lu Muyan held her forehead. Was this guy really a tier 8 demonic beast? Why did he have no principles or ethics? But with the addition of Bingji, their lives had become a lot livelier. Although sometimes he was a bit noisy, but it could also make people unconsciously relax. At the same time, sitting in a towering palace was a cyan-clothed man with a grave and stern appearance, wearing a crown. There was an image condensed from demonic sense in front of him, and within the image were the movements of Lu Muyan and her group. Monarch, do they need to be cleaned up? A dark-skinned man stood respectfully beneath the man's throne and asked after looking at the scene in the image. The cyan-clothed man laid his chin on his fist languidly and said in a cold and indifferent voice, "As long as they don't step into the Thunder Domain, you don't need to care. They were just a few Sword King stage swordmasters and weren't worth him acting. Not to mention he had long made an agreement with human powerhouses. As long as human swordmasters didn't step into the Thunder Domain, then it wasn't considered an encroachment." Yes. He waved his hand casually and the image in midair disappeared instantly. Then he got up and went back to his sleeping quarters. His demonic sense has been withdrawn. Mo Yen stared into the air and suddenly said. Lu Muyen nodded. When she first entered this foggy forest, although she couldn't feel the demonic sense Mo Yen spoke of, but she had felt a kind of palpitation of fear in her heart. Now that bad feeling had also disappeared. Her mental energy, ever since the last time in the glacial mountain range where it was condensed into a net and completely depleted, had fallen into a state of dormancy. This was a state where it was accumulating to explode and advance. Now she could only use a small part of it, so she couldn't detect the opponent's demonic sense. The few people fumbled and walked slowly for a while, then Lu Muyan's eyes sharpened. She raised her hand and flicked a few fire blades towards the front left of her. Be careful. As soon as her voice fell, everyone heard the densely packed sounds of shoo shoo, and countless icicles sprayed out from the thick fog in front of them, directly attacking them. When approaching, 1/3 of the icicles were melted by Lu Muyan's fire blades while the remaining 2/3 were slightly blocked before continuing to fly towards the few other people. But with Lu Muyan's reminder and the buffer of the fire blades, the others had long reacted, waving their swords, and numerous sword auras that exuded different colored lights slashed towards the icicles. Translated product by May Our Come True 1, xianxia. I just translated it to Little Master. But this master has the meaning of the master from young master and not the master as in master-disciple. Once again an arrogant way of self-address that one can use. But I guess Bingji isn't too confident in front of Mo Yen this time because he didn't use Big Master, Daya, like he did with Huoxiao hahaha for continuing readers. Instead of this uncle that I translated to initially when Bingji spoke with Huoxiao, I changed it to Big Master cause it made more sense. Yeah, why I'm so bothered by these small details tbhxd. Chapter 156. Scorching Flame Technique. The sword auras that the few shot out collided with the icicles, and the countless icicles weren't as strong as the sword auras, so they shattered into several pieces, falling to the ground. Xuanhuan's eyes grew cold and moved 2 fingers. The long sword in his hand suddenly grew bigger and he swung straight towards the front left. A sword aura with a strong wave of elemental energy emerged from the sword and swept out. Squeak squeak. Several icicles larger than before greeted Xuanhuan's sword aura accompanied by a few rat squeaks. The two converged in midair in the dense fog and the strong purple sword aura swept in an arc, then instantly separated into countless wisps of sword auras. It not only cut down the icicles, but a few wisps also headed towards the front left where the icicles erupted from. Squeak squeak. A few screams of rats sounded in the thick fog again. The few people exchanged looks, then walked in the direction of the shrieking, each of them activating a layer of elemental energy shields. When they approached that location, the few people saw 3 blue rats around the size of a rabbit watch them vigilantly, ready to attack at any time. One of them was injured by Xuanhuan's sword aura and was lying on the ground rolling and shrieking. Shoo shoo. As soon as the few people approached, the 2 uninjured ice fog rats spat out rows upon rows of icicles, attacking them, filled with killing intent. Lu Muyen sneered, snapped her fingers and pointed her finger towards the sky as she whispered, "Fireball technique." Following her voice, a wave of heat spread out in the sky above and in a short while fist-sized fireballs fell continuously from the sky. As soon as the icicles that were shot out touched the fireball, they continuously let off white steam, gradually melting into water droplets. The fireball shot indiscriminately and fell uninterrupted, instantly dissolving all the icicles into droplets of water. But the fireballs didn't stop, and they fell in the direction where the 3 ice fog rats were half squatting. The 2 uninjured ice fog rats instantly ran away, but fireballs would also touch their fur and skin, so their shrieks kept sounding. While that ice fog rat that was already injured and unable to run was even more miserable. The fireballs fell on its body one by one, and not long after, the shrieks gradually faded. The body of the ice fog rat was also burned to ashes by the fireball. Seeing the 2 ice fog rats fleeing while shrieking in one direction, Lu Muyan's eyes grew cold and pinched a seal in her hands. Since the 2 ice fog rats wanted to attack and kill them secretly, then they should be prepared to be counter-killed. She wouldn't let them have the opportunity to seek help from the Rat King. Just when the 2 ice fog rats thought they were lucky to have escaped the fireballs and wanted to go find reinforcements, a huge fire wave suddenly surged from ahead of them. Before they could react, they were swallowed by it and also burned to ashes. Mu Yin, has your fire elemental energy reached the state where it could do as your heart pleased? Mu Yi stared at the fireball and fire wave that had disappeared in surprise, and the emotions in his heart didn't tumble any less actively than the fire wave. Comprehending elemental energy law until the state where one could control it as they pleased usually required one to have reached the hurdle of entering a sword sovereign stage from peak phase sword monarch. Only then could one be able to have that revelation. But how did Lu Muyen, who was only at sword king strength, able to do it? While he was shocked, he was also very puzzled. As a master at playing with fire, Shi Feng's face couldn't help but change when he saw Lu Muyen control the fire elemental energy as her heart pleased, and was also wondering how she did it. Even Yi Qinghan and the other 2 looked at her in confusion. Lu Muyen brushed her sleeves and smiled faintly, saying, "It's just a technique." The fireball technique was a basic technique that cultivators during the meditation stage could practically all do, but it was laborious and time-consuming to practice it to perfection. It just so happened that when she was at the meditation stage, because her cultivation base was soaring too fast, causing it to be unstable, she used these techniques to practice one by one until perfection, and the rewards were very high. Not only did it stabilize her cultivation base, but it also had miraculous effects against opponents. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks not only the scorching flame technique, even water condensing technique, weathering technique and the other techniques had all been practiced by her until the perfection state. The fireball technique she used just now was a type of scorching flame technique. It was originally controlled by spiritual energy, but this continent had a stronger comprehension of the elements, so the effect of using fire elemental energy condensation was better than using spiritual energy. She had indeed reached the state where it did as her heart pleased, but it completely relied on her previous lives' experience and painstaking practice. It wasn't something one could do with just talent. Technique? It's the first time I've seen such a technique. Shi Feng rubbed his chin and asked, "Muyen, is it convenient for you to tell me the name of your technique?" Scorching flame technique. Lu Muyen didn't conceal it either. Hearing this name, the few people fell into deep thought, but it bore no fruits. They had indeed not heard of this type of technique. These kinds of techniques are actually just some ways to get started with the elements. It wasn't easy to cultivate to perfection, but if you want, I can make a copy of the scorching flame technique on a jade slip for you to study. Lu Muyen said very openly and generously with a smile. This kind of technique was found anywhere in the clans and sects of the immortal cultivation world and wasn't much of a secret at all. If one wanted to cultivate it to perfection, aside from the talent of comprehending the laws, the most important thing was to be able to calm one's heart and ceaselessly train. Since Mu Yi and the others were all interested, it didn't matter if she gifted it to them. Whether they could cultivate it to perfection or not was dependent on their own level of hard work. Isn't that not good? Records of techniques are exceptionally precious. Yi Qinghan shook his head slightly. Although methods weren't as rare as pill formulas and smithing secret books, but was also extremely precious, especially records of techniques, they were even rarely found in the public. For example, if a jade slip of the technique Lu Muyen just used was auctioned off at an auction, then the price would definitely be exceptionally high. Mu Yi and Shi Feng were extremely excited, and there was some burning desire in their eyes. They were in professions that dealt with fire in the long term, so they were naturally very excited about this kind of technique. However, after listening to Yi Qinghan's words, they also thought that Lu Muyen did things freely and generously, but they couldn't take advantage of it. Technique records are hard to come by. I'm indeed really interested in this scorching flame technique, but I can't get it for nothing. With a thought, an extra cyan bead appeared in Mu Yi's hand. This is a water-repelling bead which can activate a layer of light shield for protection and could be used as a defensive magic tool. When used underwater, you can avoid the water current and walk around freely. When worn on you, it also has the effect of warming in winter and cooling in summer. How about I exchange this with you? After listening to him, Lu Muyen became rather interested in this water-repelling bead and jokingly said, "This bead already isn't a common product at first glance. Are you sure you're willing to exchange a middle-level magic treasure for a technique? What's there to be unwilling? Your scorching flame technique is more suitable for my identity as a smith." Mu Yi's persistent love for smithing was no less than Shifeng's love for alchemy. Not to mention he was also a fire lover. Sure deal. Lu Muyen took out a few empty jade slips and copied the scorching flame technique using mental energy onto it, then threw it to them one by one. Shifeng also gave Lu Muyen an offensive magic treasure on him in exchange. While Yi Qinghan, Ling Feiyang and Yun Lan's exchange items were rejected by her. Their relationship would appear too distant if even gifting a technique required them to trade something. Chapter 157, Human-Eating Blood Thorn Vine. As soon as one stepped out of the foggy forest, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed. What entered the eye was a deep and quiet narrow path with no end in sight. The two sides of the path were covered with golden thorn bushes and the surroundings were very quiet, though there were still birds flying by in the sky. I wonder which one of the three danger areas this is? Mu Yi pressed his lips together tightly as he observed the surroundings. I just feel a sense of oppressiveness. Yi Qinghan stepped forward, then with a thought, he released a big-eared rabbit from his spirit beast ring and threw it onto the narrow path. The few people looked ahead fixedly, only to see the rabbit jumping into the golden thorn bush happily, and its life force didn't disappear. Let's go too, Yi Qinghan said. Lu Muyen narrowed her eyes and telepathically said to Mo Yen, "Can you tell if there's anything? I just feel that it's weird here, but even after that rabbit went in, nothing happened, so it should be temporarily safe. Of course you shouldn't let your guard down." Mo Yen replied. I also think there's definitely a problem here. Oh well, confront soldiers with generals and stem water with earth one. Seeing Yi Qinghan and the others step onto the narrow path, Lu Muyen cautioned, "You should all activate an elemental energy shield and prepare defensive magic tools. It's better to be careful." Upon listening to her, the others didn't consider it much either, and they all directly activated an elemental energy shield. They also didn't advance quickly. The narrow path was very deep and quiet, and after walking about a quarter of an hour, there still wasn't any sight of the end. The further they walked inside, more layers upon layers of tall and strong trees with luxuriant leaves enveloped the branches. The sunlight passed through the leaves but was mostly blocked, and the light grew dimmer and dimmer. Lu Muyen's mental energy was still dormant, and she couldn't explore the situation ahead. So she told the three spirit pets in her sea of consciousness, "You three, pay attention to whether there are any abnormalities around us. Little owner, something's not right here. I keep feeling a very faint aura of demonic beasts secretly overflowing. It should be deliberately hidden." Bing Jie's small eyes rolled around and around as he said cautiously. Mo Yen naturally also found the aura, the being who's here isn't kind. If it isn't that it's proficient in concealment methods, then this piece of golden thorn forest is in its area of control. Meow Meow got out of Lu Muyen's sleeve and flicked its tongue irritably ahead. Hiss hiss. Because it was still in its infancy, it wasn't able to communicate through the demonic consciousness, so it could only vaguely convey a kind of emotion for Lu Muyen to feel. Lu Muyen stretched out her hand and gently stroked its forehead to soothe it, then said to the few people who were walking together, "Be prepared to fight." Fight? There's abnormalities? Mui stopped and looked at her in confusion. He had been releasing his mental energy in caution, and he hadn't found any demonic beasts or life forces around. But before Lu Muyen could answer, the golden thorn bushes around the path appeared as if they had come alive and suddenly scurried about, turning into slender vines one by one, and crept towards the feet of the several people. There are human-eating blood thorn vines hidden in the golden thorn bushes. Everyone be careful. Yi Qinghan was a spirit beast master after all, and at this time, also discovered the abnormality. Seeing thorny golden yellow vines sneak out from the cover of the golden thorn bushes, he exclaimed. Hearing what he said, the others took out their long swords and slashed towards the golden vines that were about to wind around their feet. But after only cutting off a few sections of blood thorn vines, more of them slithered out from the golden thorn bushes, wanting to wrap around their feet even faster. Hurry and use fire elemental energy attacks. Yi Qinghan reminded the several people while waving his long sword. The human-eating blood thorn vine was a plant that absorbed human blood and life force. If it cultivated into a spirit, then it could also become a demon cultivator. In addition to demonic beasts, there were also demonic plants in this world. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks, human-eating blood thorn vines couldn't be killed. As long as its roots weren't dead, it could birth countless twigs and vines to siege and kill living organisms. Even a swordmaster's fire attribute elemental energy couldn't kill it. Feng and Mu Yi were both masters in playing with fire, and their fire elemental energy could also be condensed. The two quickly formed a seal in front of their chests. Suddenly, a giant axe condensed from elemental energy appeared in Feng's hand, and he slashed down axe after axe towards the surrounding golden vines. A fire snake slithered out from Mu Yi's hand, opened its mouth, and bit towards the golden vines that came up to besiege him. Ling Feiyang was sitting in the wheelchair with deep, dark eyes, then formed a seal, and more than a dozen firebirds emerged from his hand, instantly spreading their wings, rushing towards the golden vines that were about to wrap around his feet. Neither xuanhuan nor Yunlan had the fire attribute elemental energy, so the two could only use their element sword auras to slay the vines without knowing what weariness was, making it so that the vines couldn't get close. Lu Muyen flipped over her slender jade-like hands and fire lotuses floated from her hand. As soon as it touched the golden vines on the ground, they would scatter automatically. The petals of the fire lotuses enveloped the vines and the golden vines instantly turned to ashes. She watched Feng and the others' elemental energy condensation and also couldn't resist admiring that the talents of these three people were indeed excelling. With this kind of fire elemental energy condensation and the further study of the scorching fire technique she gave them, once the two effects overlapped, they would surely become an unexpected, invincible killer trump card. Seeing Yunlan and Xuanhuan strenuously resisting waves of inexhaustible golden vines, the several people also divided their condensed fire elemental energy to help them. Soon, the blood thorn vines that snuck out from the golden thorn bushes gradually diminished and there were piles of ashes in front of them. Squeak! Right when Lu Muyen and the others gained the upper hand, a harsh shriek suddenly sounded from within the forest. It's the human-eating blood thorn vine king. Mo Yan's voice entered Lu Muyen's ears telepathically. Lu Muyen was startled for the moment. She didn't expect that this place could birth such a blood vine king. A human-eating blood thorn vine king was so rare it was difficult to meet even in tens of thousands of years. As long as the human-eating blood thorn vine king wasn't eliminated, the golden vines would also never be destroyed. After killing a batch, it could immediately reproduce a new bunch of twigs. It was exceptionally difficult to deal with, and if any average human sword masters or demonic beasts met it, they would undoubtedly die. Then her eyes lit up. The principle of interdependence of fortune and misfortune was the same no matter what situation it was used in. Although this human-eating bloodthorn vine was difficult to deal with, but it could grow a type of bloodthorn sac within it. The bloodthorn sac could not only be used to refine pills, but it could also be used to brew spiritual wine. The spiritual wine brewed couldn't only improve one's cultivation base, but it could also improve the physique, increasing the toughness of the body. If she continued to drink it long-term, then her body refining manual definitely would benefit from it a lot. Moreover, the entire body of the bloodthorn vine was a treasure. Aside from the bloodthorn sac that could be used, the vine from the taproot could also be used to refine magic tools as it was extremely tough, and was a main material that numerous smiths dreamt of. Both the bloodthorn's sac and the bloodthorn's main vine was in short supply outside. As long as they appeared on the market, then they'd inevitably cause a frenzied scramble for it, and it could also be sold at high prices at auctions. Lu Muyen's eyes were filled with smiles. Mo Yen. This time we're going to make a fortune. Mo Yen looked at the sky speechlessly. Did this woman become a money grubber? Even Bing Ji couldn't resist twitching his mouth. Wasn't little owner's focus a little wrong? Only Meow Meow kept rubbing against Lu Muyen to show her support. In its heart, owner was always right. Whether you make a fortune or not, I don't know right now, but you're definitely in danger. Mo Yen looked up and solemnly watched the twinkling golden lights ahead of them rolling towards them like waves in the sea. When the golden lights approached, one could tell that they were actually numerous bloodthorn vines with spikes protruding from them. Chapter 158. Danger strikes. As Mo Yan's voice fell, Lu Muyen raised her head and saw rolls upon rolls of golden vines rushing towards them like tides and mighty waves. What? How come there's so many popping out again? Mu Yi stared at the sight in front of him, stunned. Yi Qinghan's expression was also exceptionally ugly. These human-eating blood-thorn vines are being controlled. What's controlling it? Shi Feng asked in befuddlement as he waved the huge axe made from fire elemental energy condensation. He and Mu Yi, one was an alchemist, one was a smith, and they didn't go out a lot throughout the year, so they didn't know much about demonic plants. The shriek just now was the voice of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. These golden vines should be its branches. Xuanhuan explained. Then how can we break through? Mu Yi returned to his senses and immediately poured out a pill that replenished elemental energy, then used his fire snake against the golden vines that were rapidly extending in front of him. Xuanhuan's eyes were solemn and his tone was helpless. We must find the place where the human-eating blood-thorn vine king is and kill it to get out of the trap. Otherwise these blood-thorn vines will be like weeds, unable to be burnt completely. At this time, the few people formed a small circle, constantly fighting against the golden vines that were as if they were bearing fangs and brandishing claws. Be careful not to get pierced by the thorns on the vines, otherwise your body will be paralyzed for a period of time. Although it's only a few breaths, but after losing your combat ability, you'll become their food. What Xuanhuan comprehended wasn't the fire attribute elemental energy, so he could only caution everyone while wielding his long sword without giving up, keeping the mentality that however many he could cut was how many that counted. Mobilizing the fire element condensation to battle took a lot of elemental energy and physical strength. Shi Feng and the others continued to take pills as sweat covered their foreheads, and they began to struggle. Lu Muyan's face slightly sunk. Her two hands kept pinching seals, and not long after, a fiery red light cover appeared, enveloping the few people and enclosing them within. A wave of heat hit the surrounding space and fires fell from the sky, all smashing against the golden vines and tendrils that were attempting to attack the flame shield. Squeak! Several shrill shrieks came from within the depths of the vines covered in flames. The golden vines that hadn't been burnt to ashes retreated one after another, hovering not far away, swaying the vines to express indignation. On the narrow path, Lu Muyan and the others formed a stalemate with the golden-colored vines. The few people were trapped in a small circle by the vines from all directions, and even if they wanted to escape they couldn't rush out. Lu Muyan took out a few bottles of spiritual energy replenishing pills and threw them to the others. Quickly replenish your elemental energy. Their new wave of attack is coming soon. After she finished speaking, she picked up a porcelain bottle and poured pills ceaselessly into her mouth. The spiritual energy replenishing pills melted the moment they entered her mouth, and the spiritual energy flowed through the meridians in her entire body to replenish her dantian. But this wasn't a good way to continue. Even if she had a lot of spiritual energy replenishing pills, but it wouldn't be able to stand such usage. These golden-colored vines were simply an endless cycle of dying then returning. Furthermore, their elemental energy could be replenished with pills, but it was difficult for their physical body to keep up. Suddenly, a few sturdy human-eating blood-thorn vines drilled out from beneath Xuanhuan and Yunlan's foot, swiftly entangled their feet, then dragged them down. Be careful underground. Mo Yen and Bing Jia's voice echoed in Lu Muyan's sea of consciousness at the same time. Lu Muyan's eyes grew cold. Her mental energy was dormant, so she couldn't detect the fluctuations underground at all. Not to mention the human-eating blood-thorn vine was exceptionally skilled in concealing its aura. Even when Mo Yen and Bing Ji noticed and reminded everyone, they were also a step too late. Xuanhuan and Yunlan were already dragged into the ground by the vines that had suddenly emerged and wrapped around their foot. Xuanhuan Yunlan. Shocked, Mui quickly mobilized the fire snake to burn the thick vines. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks, but a scene that made them all slightly despair occurred. The condensed fire elemental energy burning on the few vines that emitted a dark golden light were completely useless. They could only helplessly watch the two being dragged away and disappear. Lu Muyan furrowed her brows. It seemed that these thick dark golden vines were the main force. She mobilized the spiritual energy of her entire body, pinched seals and let out a soft yell, "Rise!" A giant lifelike fire dragon rose from behind her and roared into the air, then dived into the ground where Xuanhuan and Yunlan just disappeared from. Will they be all right? Mui used his mental energy to probe underground but found nothing. Ling Fei Yang knitted his brows tightly. There's no life-threatening concerns for now, but that human-eating blood-thorn vine demonic plant already bore intelligence, so it must be difficult to deal with. That demonic plant could see that what Xuanhuan and Yunlan comprehended wasn't the fire attribute elemental energy law, so they weren't a big threat to it. But they were the easiest to catch, so it snuck from underground to attack, and as expected it succeeded. Lu Muyen took out 2 more bottles of pills and kept pouring them into her mouth. Then her eyes sharpened, and she enhanced the light cover with fire elemental energy again. The golden-colored vines that were waving about and slapping as if they were bearing fangs and brandishing claws were completely blocked outside the light enclosure. But the golden-colored vines weren't giving up as they continued to slap, tentatively attempting to pierce the flame cover. The 3 of them saw Lu Muyan's complexion start to turn pale and a layer of dense sweat rose on her nose. They also knew that she couldn't maintain the flame cover for long, so after quickly consuming the spiritual energy replenishing pills, they mobilized their fire elemental energy to help support the light cover together. A faint despair was also born unconsciously in their hearts. Would they perish here today? However, all of them were determined and tenacious. They quickly tossed that kind of despair behind them. No one could tell the result until the very last moment. In order to survive, they couldn't lose their confidence. Lu Muyen saw that the 3 people's condensed fire elemental energy was just enough to maintain the functioning of the fire light cover. She looked deeply in the direction where the 2 had been dragged away and said, "You all hold on for a moment. They'll come back as soon as possible." After speaking, she didn't wait for anyone to answer either. She used her spiritual energy to mobilize 2 flying swords, placing them in front of her and drilled into the ground where the 2 people were dragged away. The flying swords kept spinning, stirring up the surrounding soil as she chased in the direction of the fire Aragon's aura. She had seen the introduction of the bloodthorn vine on the Tianling continent's demonic beast and demonic plants record. She found that this type of bloodthorn vine's habits were almost the same as the bloodthorn vines in the immortal cultivation world, so she could use the same method to deal with it. She once obtained a recipe for brewing bloodsack wine in the inheritance of the heavenly great alchemist, so she had searched for the human-eating bloodthorn vine in the spiritual world for ages. Ultimately, hard work didn't let down those who tried, and she found a king, then used a means to suppress it and made it surrender. At this time, although her cultivation base wasn't as high as the human-eating bloodthorn vine, but she had some confidence in dealing with it. After all, her bloodsack wine was still waiting for the bloodthorn sack of this human-eating bloodthorn vine king to be put in the pot. No matter how difficult it was, even if she had to use her all and her trump cards, she would definitely defeat it. Of course, not wanting xuanhuan and the others to die here was an important reason and determination for why she didn't want to and couldn't give up. Squeak. The harsh, high-pitched screams echoed continuously. Lu Muyan's heart tightened, then she sped up, going deeper underground. Not good. Xuanhuan and Yunlan were entangled and were about to approach the main body of the human-eating bloodthorn vine king. Danger. Translated product by Mayar Come True. Chapter 159. Arrange Array's Antrap. When Lu Muyen heard that excited call, her heart tightened. She mobilized her spiritual energy to gather into her long swords, quickly chasing the fire dragon. After going a further few hundred meters deeper underground, the fire dragon shifted its direction and Lu Muyen followed closely behind. After a while, the fire dragon chased upwards with a swish. "It seems like the human-eating bloodthorn vine king is right up there," Bingji said while looking at the place not far away. Lu Muyen had a deep chill in her eyes. If this demon vine dared to touch Xuanhuan and Yunlan, then she wouldn't want its bloodthorn sack anymore. Only by burning it could she relieve her hatred. However, she didn't chase in the direction of the fire dragon again, but instead ceaselessly formed newer territory ahead. "Little owner, are you not going to chase in the direction of the fire dragon? The human-eating bloodthorn vine king is right on top," Bingji asked in confusion. Lu Muyen mobilized the double swords forward while saying, "I naturally have my own way to deal with it." Bingji rolled his eyes. The target was just above, how could she deal with it if she came here instead and didn't follow it upwards? Mo Yan's eyes were still indifferent, but it hid an understanding. "You want to try destroying its roots?" As expected, Mo Yan is smart, Lu Muyen said. Bingji glared at Mo Yan. This kid would just always come out to please people at the critical moments. Mo Yen replied with a cold look, and Bingji instantly felt that the feathers on his body were about to stand up on its ends. This damned spirit devourer had race suppression against him. Finally, he cursed Mo Yen in his heart repeatedly, and only then did he feel more comfortable. As Lu Muyen was moving forward, a sliver of spiritual sense was also attached to the fire dragon. After knowing that the dark golden vines entangled the 2 of them and dragged them to the place above but didn't do anything for the time being, she gently sighed with relief. While mobilizing the fire dragon to hover over the 2 people's heads, readying it to fight with the human-eating bloodthorn vine king, she also stopped in a place. What entered her eye was the thick root system wrapped in dark golden-colored bark. Each root system also had countless red threads just like blood vessels. The root system had been extended to a very deep underground place and spiritual force was being absorbed by its root system incessantly. Lu Muyan's eyes sharpened. Without any hesitation, she flipped her right hand and a cluster of purple golden-colored flames jumped out of her palm, prepared to act. Who knew that this demon tree is only at initial phase Tier 6 cultivation base? Bing Ji scanned the aura of the demonic plant opposite him, pursed his lips and said casually. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes at him. Demonic plants have it much harder in cultivating than demonic beasts. Initial phase Tier 6 strength isn't at all weaker than a late phase Tier 6 demonic beast. Not to mention that it's a king. In order for a plant to become a spurt and gain intelligence was hundreds or even thousands of times more difficult than demonic beasts. That's why demonic plants were exceptionally rare. Each high-level demonic plant birth could basically sweep out demonic beasts at the same tier. A demonic beast could transform into human form at Tier 7 while demonic plants needed to be at Tier 8. At Tier 6 it could only communicate using demonic sense, and only at Tier 7 could it speak the human language. Each step was a tier slower, but its strength was even stronger. It was useless to deal with such a demonic plant using ordinary fire elemental energy. Of course, if it were a human swordmaster 2 stages higher than a demonic plant and who could use fire elemental energy, then they could definitely cause damage towards it. Her cultivation level wasn't enough, so the only thing that could restrain it was mutant flames. If she hadn't subdued the purple golden spirit flame, then she wouldn't dare rush in so easily and take abuse herself. After all, although she had the ability to challenge higher stages, but the demonic plant also had that ability, and it was countless times more difficult to deal with than her. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks, she noticed that a powerful aura appeared above, directly waving its vines and sent the bound Yi Qinghan and Yunlan towards it. The fire dragon kept burning the dark golden-colored vines, but it was of little use. Go. So she said without hesitation, and the purple gold spirit flame was as if it had come alive, turning into a blooming purple peony and floated out. As soon as the peony touched the main root system of the human-eating blood thorn vine king, the other party shrank swiftly as if it had seen a ghost, but it was too large and could barely move a few steps. Crackle. Several sounds of burning vines resounded and a faint burnt smell spread in the underground soil. Squeak squeak. A loud and shrill cry sounded. The sturdy tree roots that intertwined deep in the ground actually broke away from the soil and flicked in Lu Muyan's direction as if it had come alive, one by one. There was also a very indignant demonic sense telepathic voice that was heard. Human, today I must tear you into thousands of pieces. It had been 1,000 years, he had never suffered such humiliation and pain. The power of the flame just now made him feel strong danger. He must kill this danger. Meanwhile, also kill the human that dared to set him on fire, tearing them into countless pieces of flesh and blood to serve as the nourishment for his roots. Just with you, an ugly demonic plant. Lu Muyan huffed coldly, flipped her hands, and numerous purple peonies instantly floated down. When they met the tree roots that were flicking towards her, they fell piece by piece from the stamens and melted into the dark golden-colored tree roots. Screech screech. A few more shrieks sounded. All the tree roots that were merged with the purple golden petals made a crackle sound, accompanied by a burning smell. Damned human, if you have the guts then come up and fight me head-on. The human-eating blood thorn vine king was extremely angry but could do nothing. That purple-colored spirit flame was the nemesis of all them demonic plants, and they'll become trash the moment they touch it. Just now, when his huge root system touched the flame, it had become completely unable to regenerate. His heart was bleeding. Those were the root systems on which he depended for survival. Pfft. Lu Muyan sneered, and the movements of her hands didn't stop as she specifically attacked the relatively weaker roots using the purple gold spirit flame. Do you think him a fool? You deserve to die. The human-eating blood thorn vine king was truly infuriated this time. He retrieved the root that he was about to attack Lu Muyan with. The roots of the tree suddenly began to change, becoming shorter and thinner. He was the blood thorn vine king, so he naturally occupied the place with the most abundant spiritual force and could also move at will. Now that he was restrained by the purple flames, he could only shorten and shrink his rhizomes so that the human couldn't easily burn them. Lu Muyan sneered and condensed several Taoist seals in mid-air, shooting them one by one to the place that the tree roots of the human-eating blood thorn vine king had occupied before. Seal. After forming the last Taoist seal with her hands, she slapped it down hard. More than a dozen jade-colored runes emerged from all directions, intertwining together to form a dense net from all sides, trapping the human-eating blood-thorn vine king that had shrunk countless times within. When she first saw such huge rhizomes earlier, she just knew that it'd be too laborious to deal with the human-eating blood-thorn vine king by just relying on the purple-gold spirit flame. It was easy to escape by just shrinking the entire tree root like he did. So from the moment she entered here, she hid her hands in her sleeves, pinching seals and arranging talisman arrays. As long as the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was trapped and couldn't move to escape or attack her in wide ranges, she could make him obedient. As her voice fell, the dense net of jade-colored rays of light flourished in all directions and turned into a high wall of dozens of meters, circling with runes, compressing towards the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. Come true. Chapter 160. Are you reconciled or unreconciled? The high wall built by the jade-colored runes, intertwined with the purple-gold spirit flame, swiftly surrounded the human-eating blood-thorn vine king and locked his demonic energy to prevent him from escaping. Squeak. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king above found that the demonic energy of his tree root was bound by the hateful spirit flame. He couldn't shrink it anymore. In a rage, he whipped his dark golden mane vine ceaselessly. With just a few whips, the land above was all split into deep ravines, but he couldn't vent the anger in his chest. The corner of Lu Muyan's lips raised slightly into an arc. When the blood-thorn vine king whipped the ground angrily, she reacted extremely quickly and controlled the fire dragon built by elemental energy to roll up Xuanhuan and Yunlan, who had been tossed on the ground, and run. When the human-eating blood-thorn vine king finally reacted, the fire dragon was already soaring straight into the sky, rushing far away as if riding on clouds and flying on mist. His anger rose and he roared, stretching out his main branch quickly towards the sky, attempting to recapture the two of them. These were his food and nourishment. No humans or demonic beasts had entered his territory for so long. He hadn't tasted fresh blood for decades, so he sure didn't want to let go of his prey like this. But the main part of his branch vines only stretched out a portion when Lu Muhan felt it and recited a spell, formed seals, and bound his roots tightly. The purple-gold spirit flame continuously scorched his rhizome, making him feel piercing, heart-wrenching pain for the first time. The vines that were extended retracted unconsciously. Xuanhuan and Yunlan were also successfully brought back to the place where Ling Feiyang and the others were by the fire dragon. As soon as the fire dragon's claws loosened, the two people fell from its claws from a high altitude and directly into the fire cover erected by Lu Muyan. Xuanhuan Yunlan. Seeing this, Shifeng quickly squatted down to check the two of them, then completely heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully they're fine. Fine? Then why can't they move? Mu Yi asked in confusion while supporting the fire cover. After Xuanhuan and Yunlan were thrown down, he found that they couldn't move at all. They were poisoned by the paralyzing venom on the vines of the human-eating blood-thorn vine, so it'll take a while for them to recover. Shifeng explained after taking out 2 antidote pills for the two of them to take. In a few breaths of time, Xuanhuan and Yunlan's stiff faces and bodies eased a lot. Shifeng asked, "Where's Lu Muyan? We didn't see her. We only know that she saved us with the fire dragon made from fire elemental energy condensation and angered the human-eating blood-thorn vine king." The paralyzing poison in Xuanhuan's body gradually disappeared and he was able to speak again, but there was an indescribable worry in his tone. Yunlan's eyes also revealed a bit of annoyance. It was him and Xuanhuan who dragged Lu Muyan down. Your elemental energy isn't the fire attribute, so it's normal for that demonic plank king to have caught an opportunity. Ling Feiyang said when he saw that the two people's expressions were obscure and annoyed. This really couldn't be blamed on the two of them for dragging them back. It just showed that the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was too cunning. Xuanhuan immediately stood up after discovering that his whole body could move. With a thought, a black light flew out from the spirit beast ring on his wrist. Li. Then a deafening cry resounded throughout the entire forest. A Tier 6 golden eagle king with a huge, completely black-brown body, a slight purple luster on its back and shoulders, and a cluster of golden feathers on its head and neck, as if wearing a crown, appeared in front of everyone. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks, Qi. I request that you bring her back safely. Xuanhuan looked at the golden eagle king with deep eyes and said, "All right." The golden eagle king, known as Qi, nodded slightly, spread out his wings indifferently and rushed up, disappearing into the sky in only a few moments. Xuanhuan clenched his fists tightly. Before, Qi was in a dormant state so he couldn't contact him. Just now, after being fed a medicinal pill by Feng, he suddenly felt the signs of Kai's awakening, so he used his mental energy to quickly rouse him. The Golden Eagle King was the spirit pet he contracted when he was a child. He had accompanied him through almost 20 years of springs and autumns. This time he just broke through to Tier 6, so he could only hope that he can bring Lu Muyen back safely. Not far from them, Lu Muyen rushed up from underground to the surface. The moment she looked up, she saw a purely golden-colored plant that was more than 10 feet tall, waving its thick vines constantly, while the trunk in the middle revealed very faint facial features. "Damned human, what have you done to me?" The human-eating blood thorn vine king couldn't move his root systems and was firmly trapped by an unknown force and the spirit flame. Lu Muyen played with a cluster of purple gold-colored flames and said, "Naturally to seal you up so that you can't come out and cause trouble. Are you reconciled or unreconciled? How bold. You dare to treat thus king like this. This king will definitely tear you to pieces." In the 1,000 years, aside from being beaten by that monster in the Thunder Zone that couldn't be offended, it was the first time the human-eating bloodthorn vine king had been in such a sorry state. Lu Muyen sneered coldly, "Then I'll let you taste the feeling of your body burning in fiery fire." It seemed that without using some means, this demonic plant king wouldn't yield. She had always disliked forcibly contracting spirit pets when taking them for herself. Since he didn't submit now, then she would beat him into submission. The human-eating bloodthorn vine was very useful. It wasn't just the best ingredient to use for medicine and brewing wine, and the best material for refining magic tools, it even had powerful combat abilities. Such a spirit pet that was practical and capable of combat, she'd definitely take him for herself. Clusters of purple gold-colored flames separated from her palm then turned into a pair of intangible hands in mid-air, grabbing the countless golden vines that were about to attack her. Squeak! The main vine of the human-eating bloodthorn vine king was grasped firmly by the purple-gold spirit flame that had turned into a pair of big hands. Lu Muyen gave an order and the flames quickly burned, igniting the golden vine. In only a few breaths of time, it was turned into ash. The main vine damaged would also cause backlash damage to the human-eating bloodthorn vine king. He hated in his heart that although this human woman was one tier lower than him in strength, but she possessed heavenly-grade spirit flame which was the nemesis of demonic plants like him. If this continued, he'd definitely be burned to death by this woman. With a change of mind, he directly separated a portion of his body from the root system, beginning from his demonic core and Yaofu upwards, turned and just burrowed into the ground to try to escape. Lu Muyen understood the habits of this kind of demonic plant, so she naturally wouldn't let him succeed, and had long laid out an array before the battle just now. The human-eating bloodthorn vine king wanted to plunge into the soil, but was blocked by a layer of jade-colored runes that suddenly rose. There was even a long and thin purple gold-colored flame flowing above the runes. Squeak! The top of the human-eating bloodthorn vine king was burned a bit by the purple-gold spirit flame and he hurriedly took a few steps back with lingering fear. Yet who knew that when he was still trying to think of ways to escape, spiral-like jade-colored runes flew up from underground, surrounding him and directly trapped his original body. The wisps of purple-gold spirit flame in the jade-colored runes spun excitedly, as if it would devour the demonic plant in the circle the moment owner gave the order. "Human, just what do you want to do?" Although the human-eating bloodthorn vine king had lived for 1,000 years, but he had only just grown up, and although he proclaimed himself king in this land as his all year round, but his battle experience wasn't that abundant. He also had never suffered such a loss before. So while being completely suppressed by the spirit flame, he could only ask angrily. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow and a domineering aura poured out, bold and arrogant. "I want you to recognize me as owner. Are you reconciled or unreconciled?" At the same time she questioned, the purple-gold spirit flame was still dancing with the wind in her palm, as if baring fangs and brandishing claws, staring at the human-eating bloodthorn vine king. As long as he dared to say the word no, it would immediately rush up and teach him another lesson. Come true. "Are you reconciled or unreconciled?" Lu Muyen's voice was sharp and domineering. The human-eating bloodthorn vine king looked at the woman opposite, who was like a beautiful, delicate flower with her light purple clothes fluttering in the wind, revealing a kind of uninhibited boldness as if looking down upon this world. There was a kind of indignation revealed on his human-like face. This woman actually wanted to take him as her spirit pet. But that purple-gold spirit flame was also too powerful. he was suppressed to such an extent that he simply couldn't defeat her. This king isn't reconciled. After considering it for a bit, the human-eating bloodthorn vine king toughened its head and said, "You, a little girl at Sword King Cultivation Base, actually wanted to take this king as a sprit pet. Truly what a big joke." Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow and said with a smile instead of anger, "Then this young miss will beat you until you're reconciled." If the human-eating bloodthorn vine king just accepted it like that, then she'd actually feel that there was a scheme. "Humph, don't use the purple gold spirit flame if you have the ability." The human-eating bloodthorn vine king looked at Lu Muyen and said with fear, "You want to use reverse psychology?" Lu Muyen's eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. "I can conquer the purple gold spirit flame, so it's a part of my strength. Do you see me as an idiot? You despicable woman. This king won't play with you anymore." Seeing the ridicule on her face, the human-eating bloodthorn vine king spoke furiously, then shot up towards the sky. Since he couldn't run underground, then hell run away in the sky. Just wait for when he calls a demon cultivator who didn't fear the purple gold spirit flame to come as reinforcement. He'd definitely show this woman something good. This woman was fair and tender, her fresh blood must be very delicious. Lu Muyen watched the human-eating bloodthorn vine king's body turn into a golden light and fly towards the sky, the ridicule in her eyes even thicker. Her fingers pointed towards the array that surrounded him, in circle. Immediately, only a muffled sound could be heard, and the human-eating bloodthorn vine king was barricaded by a circling jade-colored rune barrier, and he was bounced back to the ground. Lu Muyen didn't bother to waste time any longer, so she directly leapt into the array with bare and empty hands, enveloped her fists with purple gold spirit flame, then just smashed it towards the human-eating bloodthorn vine king fist by fist. Each time the fists with toughness not inferior to a late-phase tier 5 demonic beast, carrying a layer of purple gold colors, smashed against the dark golden main branch of the vine, a dent would form, and it would immediately blacken, spreading a burnt smell. Bing Ji watched as the beautiful and lovely little owner's face was dyed with thick battle intent and excitement, slamming each punch down exceptionally violently while the human-eating bloodthorn vine king's shrill cries resounded ceaselessly. Each time he wanted to escape, he'd be blocked by the rune array, then immediately be greeted with the slender fist covered with purple gold. The corner of his lips twitched uncontrollably, eyelids jumped, and he swallowed his saliva as he said to Mo Yen, "Fortunately I haven't truly angered her before." The indifference in Mo Yan's eyes was replaced by a smile, his voice light, "You can go try." Bing Ji rolled his eyes. It wasn't like he was a masochist. Although Little Owner's cultivation base was one stage lower than him, but she was filled with tricks. Based on those numerous types of spirit arrays alone, it could give him a headache, not to mention that she still had the purple gold spirit flame that had been tamed to obedience in her body. Spirit flames were a spiritual item that needed at least 1,000 years to birth from heaven and earth. It was divided into mortal rank, earth rank, sky rank, saint rank, and the higher the level the more difficult to produce and the longer it took. For example, the purple gold spirit flame couldn't be formed without at least a few 10,000 years. It also required a special geographical environment and the companionship of other spiritual items to slowly be birthed. The heavenly frost golden crystal was a necessary condition for the birth of the purple gold spirit flame, and a mountain with the crisscrossing of extreme heat and extreme coldness was the necessary geographical environment for its birth. Therefore, as long as this kind of spirit flame was subdued by someone, it couldn't only be used for alchemy and smithing, but could also be used in battle. Its destructive power was extremely strong and was even the nemesis of demonic plants and some demonic beasts. Although Bing Ji was a descendant of a xuanhuan, but his innate talents were mostly of the ice attribute, so the purple gold spirit flame also had an innate suppressing effect on him. He took another sneak peek at the human-eating bloodthorn vine king who was being beaten by Lu Muyen, unable to fight back at all while screaming miserably. He shrunk his neck. In the future, he'd rather offend the red-clothed beautiful man than to offend Little Owner. When she landed in this area, he saw the shocking scene. That petite and stunning purple-clothed woman had fierce fighting intent between her brows, directly bombarding the human-eating bloodthorn vine king with her fists. What was even more exaggerated was that the human-eating bloodthorn vine king, who was usually very mighty, had no power to fight back right now and was just fully dodging the little woman's attack with all his might while screaming miserably. That appearance was just terribly miserable. The Spirit Devourer had a pure demonic race bloodline that was comparable to that of a true dragon and heavenly phoenix, and was also a royal race demonic beast. So how did he recognize a lower interface woman with such weak strength as his owner? Mo Yin saw his confusion but didn't explain either, only asking, "You're Yi Qinghan's spirit pet?" This golden eagle carried Yi Qinghan's aura, so it must have signed a blood contract with Yi Qinghan since childhood. Qi suddenly felt as if he understood after hearing what he said. He also sincerely recognized Yi Qinghan as owner, depending on each other in life and death. There must also be a reason for why this spirit devourer recognized that woman as owner. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard the shrill screams of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king not far away. "Reconciled, reconciled, stop hitting me. Come true." Chapter 162. Owner, is it really good for you to be so violent? Reconciled, reconciled, stop hitting me. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king was in pain all over his body, and in the end he couldn't bear the fists with purple gold flames falling onto his body anymore, so he screamed in submission. Lu Muyen grabbed his main branch vine with one hand and punched with the other. Hearing that he suddenly said he was reconciled, she furrowed her brows. "I still haven't fought enough yet, why don't you fight back? I'm the only one fighting, what a disappointment." It was rare to be able to have a hearty fight. The body of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king was very durable against being beaten, so she vented a bit while she was at it. But the only thing that made her dissatisfied was that this demonic plant only knew how to dodge, and it didn't even hurt or itch when he fought back. It really swept away half of her interest. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king really wanted to just kneel. What did she mean that she hadn't fought enough and that him not fighting back even disappointed her? He wasn't a fool, he also wanted to fight back too. But could he even fight back? Her whole body was covered with a layer of purple gold spirit flame. The moment he touched it, head burn, and the toughness of her body was even comparable to that of a demonic beast, alright? If he fought back, he'd not only not be able to hurt her much, but he'd also pay with himself and be burned as well. It wasn't like he had a brain spasm. Hearing Lu Muyan's words, Bingji looked up at the sky speechlessly and muttered, "Little owner, is it really good for you to be so violent? Bingji, you have an opinion against me?" Although Bing Jia's voice was soft, but it still fell in Lu Muyan's ears. She narrowed her eyes and said dangerously. It just so happened that she hadn't fought enough and wasn't satisfied. If this stinky bird dared to talk back, then she'd let him transform back into his original form and also abuse him a bit. Bing Ji immediately put on a flattering smile. "How's that possible? My pure heart for little owner can be reflected by the sun and the moon. And just complimenting that you fought well, fought really well. Little owner just needs to be this violent to make people like you." After he finished speaking, he immediately attracted the contemptuous gazes from Mo Yen and Qi. Such a shameful divine beast that loses face truly was unheard of. Bing Ji just ignored the two beasts' gaze, as if he wanted to be punished by owner so violently. Lu Muyen rolled her eyes. Bing Ji really had no moral integrity. She stomped a foot heavily on the area where the head was on the main body of the human-eating blood-thorn vine king and crushed it a few times. "Are you really reconciled or fake reconciled?" Fuck, this damned woman actually trampled on his head, but he didn't dare reveal his feelings verbally. "I'm really reconciled." Be a spirit pet. Well then hell, be a spirit pet. At least it was better than being beaten and burned to death. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king was extremely regretful at this time. Had he known early on, then when these people entered his area, he wouldn't take the initiative to attack them. This was really losing one's army on top of losing one's wife. When Lu Muyen saw that he was indeed really scared after being beaten by her, did she retrieve her foot and raised an eyebrow? "I'll sign a contract of equals with you now. We'll be partners from now on. I won't enslave you either, and I'll also help you improve your strength. Of course, if you want to go back on your word, I won't force you either." Then she added. When she contracted spirit pets, she never liked to force them. "Do I dare to go back on my word?" The human-eating blood-thorn vine king had a mouthful of old blood stuck in his chest. If he dared to go back on it, then this little grandaunt would definitely beat him to death. Contract of equals, partner, help him improve his strength. It didn't sound that bad. I'll just pretend he boarded a pirate ship one. Just contract, I'm willing to be your spirit pet. It was just a pity for the life he spent here proclaiming himself king in this land as his. But he had also long wanted to go out and see the outside world. Few humans and demonic beasts came here, and there was no fresh blood to provide nourishment. Relying on absorbing spiritual force to cultivate really was just too slow. Originally he thought to wait until he could transform before going out, as he, right now, simply couldn't move out of this area at all. So it was actually good if he was contracted by this woman, as he could escape that monster's control, and he also didn't have to wait hundreds to 1,000 years to transform. Lu Muyin revealed a hint of satisfaction in her eyes. This time she actually profited in coming to Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. Her 2 hands kept forming seals and she mouthed an obscure spell. Strips of jade-colored runes flew out of her body, wounding around the human-eating blood thorn vine king. A drop of blood essence fell from her fingertip and dripped onto the top of the other party's head. A warm light circle enveloped the 1 human and 1 demon, constantly flowing with colorful, glaze-like colors. Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks. After a while, the colorful glazed light circle vanished, and there was also a spiritual connection between Lu Muyin and the human-eating blood thorn vine king. The originally reluctant human-eating blood thorn vine king's cultivation base, after the contract, suddenly skyrocketed, and the dark golden-colored vines grew numerous main branches again, while the roots returned in his body again. He was completely shocked inwardly. The green fog on this woman could actually allow him to evolve. He instantly soared from initial phase tier 6 to middle phase tier 6 strength. This was the result that he could only obtain after cultivating at least 10 years. Of course, if he absorbed the blood of high-level swordmasters and demonic beasts, then he could also advance quickly, but it still wasn't as miraculous as the green fog. Xue pays formal respects to owner. The human-eating blood thorn vine king was much more sincere at this time. That green fog was a good thing. It might actually be a good choice to follow this woman, and the resistance in his heart also eased a lot. Lu Muyin was also amazed inwardly at the effect of the green sea of fog. Not only could it remove poison, heal wounds, had a repairing function and nourish the meridian, but it could also promote the advancement of spirit pets? No. There was no such situation when she contracted Mo Yen, Bingji and Miao Miao. Lu Muyin's eyes were as deep as the sea. It seemed that the green fog was only useful for demonic plants, then was it also useful for spiritual herbs? An idea suddenly popped up in her mind. She could try it when she returned. She knew that this kind of advancement was only obvious when contracting. The green sea of fog in her body could help Xue, but it would no longer be as fast and miraculous as it was just now. Xue, can you still turn smaller? Lu Muyin furrowed her brows and looked the human-eating blood thorn vine king up and down. It'd be too flamboyant to release such a figure in the future. The human-eating blood thorn vine king couldn't help but hold his forehead with a vine. Xue, could I not want this name? But he didn't dare to resist, otherwise it was immediate service with flames. Remembering the power of the purple gold spirit flame, he couldn't resist shuddering. Had never forget the burning sensation just now. Now that he was finally repaired by the green fog in that woman, it would be best if he didn't seek death. Owner, I can become the size of your 7-colored parrot. The human-eating blood thorn vine king said respectfully. Only then did Lu Muyin nod with satisfaction. With a thought, the jade-colored rune ribbon that surrounded the human-eating blood thorn vine king entered her body, and the array was also removed. Xue felt that the moment the suppression from the array was dissipated, he could consciously reduce the size of his body to the size of Bingji. You don't have to be so unfamiliar and respectful to me in the future. Lu Muyin looked at Xue seriously and said, in the future we'll be life and death partners. Once the contract of equals took effect, then it couldn't be broken. Their future life and death would be linked together. She regarded all her spirit pets as partners and not spirit pets. Xue's heart tightened and was actually moved by Lu Muyin's sincerity. His guard was lowered a lot. Example, Xue blood, can also be pronounced as Xia blood. How do you know which one to use? You just do. Chapter 163. This monarch wants to speak with you privately in the Thunder Zone's main hall. Thunder Monarch wore a silk, cyan, long robe, leaning lazily on the couch with a glass of wine. The guardian who guarded the demon pavilion hurried in and knelt down anxiously. Monarch, the jade tablet of the human-eating blood thorn vine king is shattered. Thunder Monarch opened his half-closed eyes, his gaze stern and grim. How did it shatter? The guardian of the demon pavilion's body shook and said, he was contracted by a human. Inside the demon pavilion were the demon soul jade tablets of all the tier 6 demonic beasts in the 3 danger areas in Sunset Cloud Mountain Range, and they were also all subject to Thunder Monarch. There were only 2 possible ways for the jade tablets to be broken. One was to be killed, and the other was to be contracted by humans. In this area, there had been no such thing as a tier 6 demonic beast having been contracted by a human for 1,000 years. Who knew that this time, the human-eating blood thorn vine king that was practically invincible among the tier 6 would be contracted by a human? He was afraid that in a fit of anger Monarch wouldn't even let go of little demons like him. Thunder Monarch shook the wine glass gently, and with a thought, he flicked 2 drops of wine in the glass into the air. Once the demonic energy was poured in, the previous image appeared again. Within the image was all of what happened when Lu Muyen and her party stepped into the area of the golden thorn bushes. Purple gold spirit flame. Thunder Monarch's thin lips parted lightly. He moved his gaze to the 7-colored parrot and the palm-sized fire cloud mink. His calm eyes revealed a rare hint of surprise, Spirit Devourer and xuanhuan's descendant. Who knew that our little interface even has such divine beasts? The 3 danger areas had long been controlled by Thunder Monarch, so all the auras of the humans or demonic beasts that entered couldn't escape the detection of his demonic sense. There was a ray of light in his dark eyes and the hand holding the cup tightened. That woman could just be an opportunity. Monarch, should we catch and bring those human swordmasters here? The burly man standing below asked. He was the captain of Thunder Monarch's bodyguards. Seeing Thunder Monarch's expression change constantly, something that hadn't appeared in hundreds of years, he took a step forward, half-knelt, and asked for instructions. Thunder Monarch raised his eyes and scanned the purple-clothed woman in the image, then said leisurely after a while, "No need, this monarch will go in person." After speaking in a flash, he disappeared from the large hall. Golden Thorn Bush area. Lu Muyen was in a very good mood after subduing Shui. When she saw the Golden Eagle King standing with Mo Yen not far away, she was taken aback. Lu Muyen's face turned pale. While facing this pressure, a thought actually formed in her mind, that she couldn't fight against it. This was precisely the insurmountable gap between cultivation bases. Even if she could fight across stages, but she was still powerless in the face of a powerhouse 2 or even more stages higher. What's this? Shi Feng looked emotionlessly in the distance not far away, but his legs were slightly trembling. He tried his best not to kneel and submit. The legendary Tier 9 demonic beast. Xuanhuan's expression turned grim. He dealt with demonic beasts the most here. The only thing that could make him feel powerless to fight against, with lingering fear as if they were enveloped by death, was probably only that Tier 9 demonic beast. Despair rose in the hearts of the few. Could today really be the day they would truly fall here? Lu Muyen also had a rare look of gloom in her eyes, but she didn't feel helpless. She had lived 2 lives, she wouldn't fear death. The pressure grew denser, and a cyan shadow suddenly appeared in front of the several people. His body was covered in a layer of mist and his face couldn't be seen clearly. His figure was tall, and the temperament of a king was undoubtedly revealed. Lu Muyen and the others couldn't see through his level of cultivation at all. They only felt a surge of suppression, making them unable to breathe. "Is there something you need, Your Excellency?" Lu Muyen's eyes didn't have much turbulence and her voice was calm. She could feel that there wasn't any killing intent from this high-level demonic beast. So the purpose of his sudden arrival could be deliberated. Thunder Monarch's lips curled into an arc. This woman sure was very courageous. Being able to still remain so calm and composed when facing him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of appreciation rise in his heart. "You broke into this monarch's area without authorization. Don't you need to give this monarch an explanation? Little owner, don't listen to this monster. The Thunder Zone is his domain and this is my territory." Shui shouted. He was both afraid and hateful of Thunder Monarch. Lu Muyen's lips twitched. "What your territory? If he wanted to kill you, wasn't it like crushing a grasshopper? What do you want us to explain, senior?" Xuanhuan tucked his head and asked. He couldn't let Lu Muyen come forward to deal with this. In the face of such a dangerous powerhouse, a man was needed. Ling Fei Yang and the others also showed the same thought, looking deeply at the mysterious man who appeared. Monarch Ming ignored Xuanhuan's question and looked straight at Lu Muyen. "This monarch wants to speak with you privately." Translated product by May Our Come True. Chapter 164. First collect some interest. This monarch wants to speak with you privately. Upon hearing Thunder Monarch's request, Xuanhuan and the others were startled. They anxiously wanted to stop him, but Lu Muyen waved her hand to stop them. "All right." Lu Muyen looked up at Thunder Monarch and said lightly. The strength of this Tier 9 demonic beast could sweep away countless kingdoms and clans just by going out. How could they be able to resist him here? Thunder Monarch was more satisfied with Lu Muyen's straightforwardness. He gently waved his sleeves and the one human, one demon disappeared from here. He came for Lu Muyen. Shi Feng knitted his brows tightly. Ling Fei Yang's hand on the wheelchair clenched so tightly that it turned white. Yenner will be fine. That Tier 9 demon cultivator had no killing intent. But he didn't know what he wanted with Lu Muyen, so he couldn't help but worry. The several people here were very worried, while Lu Muyen stood in a large hall after swaying for a bit. Thunder Monarch walked straight to his throne and his face was still unclear. He picked up the glass of wine on the table beside him, took a sip and didn't speak. Lu Muyen wasn't in a hurry either. There were no other chairs in the large hall except for the throne, so she just stood there quietly, her eyes cold. After quite a while, Thunder Monarch said, "You're quite bold. Aren't you scared this monarch will kill you all? Your strength is much higher than us. It's just a matter of tapping your finger if you wanted to kill us. Since we can't resist, then why be afraid? It's just a waste of energy." Lu Muyen replied calmly and composedly. "Do you know why this monarch wants to see you privately?" Lu Muyen felt that it definitely wasn't simple for this demonic beast to find her, so she concealed the strange color in her eyes. "Is it for the human-eating blood thorn vine king?" "Ha, this monarch wouldn't put a mere Tier 6 demonic beast at heart." Thunder Monarch's gaze remained indifferent. "Just directly speak your purpose." Lu Muyen couldn't think of what this demon cultivator's plans were, so she went straight to the point. "This monarch will ask you a few questions. If you answer truthfully, then your lives will be spared." Thunder Monarch's voice grew colder, with a hint of threatening. "Of course, if you deliberately deceive this monarch, then you and your companions will remain here and be the nourishment for the demonic plants in the back garden." Lu Muyen narrowed her eyes and an indescribable emotion emerged spontaneously. This was the gap in strength. In the face of level suppression, she could only yield. In her heart, the improvement of strength grew even more urgent. She must become the ultimate powerhouse on this continent. "Just ask. What's the skill you used to contract the human-eating bloodthorn vine king?" This monarch sees that it's different from the beast-taming skill of Tianling continent. Thunder Monarch played with the wineglass and asked casually. Lu Muyen didn't conceal it either. "Ancient contract skill, based on equality contracts." "How is it equal?" Thunder Monarch continued to ask. Lu Muyen wondered why this demon cared about this, but her face was calm and didn't show it. "After the contract is formed, the relationship between me and my spirit pet is that of an equal partnership. I can't force them to do anything they don't want to do, and it's also impossible to take the lives of spirit pets like other beast-taming skills can. And the most important thing is that once the contracts of other beast-taming skills are successful, when the owner dies, the spirit pet will also definitely die. But the ancient contract skill I use is different. If the owner dies, the spirit pet wouldn't die." Hearing that the other party's breathing wasn't as steady as before, Lu Muyen's lips curled, saying with a smile, "However, the contracted spirit pet must not have the slightest thought of betrayal, let alone the idea of killing their owner. Otherwise it will suffer severe punishment from the laws of space, making them feel as if dying was better than living, and they would never be able to turn their situation over." "Can the owner take the initiative to cancel such a contract?" Thunder Monarch asked in a heavy tone. "Can't. I found and cultivated this ancient contract skill in an ancient cultivator's cave. There's only the method of contract, but there's no method to terminate the contract." Lu Muyen shook her head. Thunder Monarch fell silent for a while before continuing to speak. "What if your contracted spirit pet doesn't want to be by your side? Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks, I've always disliked forcing people, same with spirit pets. If they don't want to be with me, although I can't cancel the contract, but I won't force and restrain their freedom." Lu Muyen's voice was clear and ethereal, but with a hint of willful uninhibitedness. She would use both hard and soft tactics, but if she still couldn't keep the spirit pet she contracted by her side, then it was she who was incompetent, so naturally she wouldn't restrain their freedom. "How many demonic beasts can you contract with the ancient contract skill?" Thunder Monarch asked while rubbing the wineglass. Lu Muyen cursed Thunder Monarch again and again in her heart. He really was abnormal, like the human-eating bloodthorn vine king said. Who knew what the use of inquiring about this was? 10 contracts can be made. She didn't say that, in fact the contract had no upper limit, and instead said a reserved number. Thunder Monarch nodded slightly, paused, then asked, "I heard that you human cultivators will have a grand event for the whole continent soon?" "Yes. In another 2 months, there'll be a continental tournament for hegemony on Tianling continent." Lu Muyen rolled her eyes inwardly. This demon definitely asked while knowing the answer. "You're participating?" Thunder Monarch's tone was affirmative. Lu Muyen nodded. Participating. Very good. Thunder Monarch took a sip of the wine from the cup and his voice was cold and mellow. This monarch needs help from you. After it is done, the benefits will definitely exceed your imagination. Lu Muyen chuckled lightly. What if it can't be done? The help wanted by a tier 9 demonic beast definitely wouldn't be simple. Naturally, there's only a dead end. Thunder Monarch said decisively. Lu Muyen's expression didn't change, and her eyes showed an expression of as expected. But right now she was under the control of others and couldn't get away for the time being. Help with what? Now isn't the time for you to know. When you actually have the life to survive until you see this monarch again in the tournament for hegemony, then you will naturally know. Thunder Monarch obviously looked as if he didn't want to talk too much. Lu Muyen wasn't annoyed either. Sure. I promise you. The more challenging something was, the more she liked to do it. But she noted down the several threats from Thunder Monarch today. When she had the opportunity, she would definitely repay him a bit. I didn't expect that, although you aren't that old, but you're quite bold. This is the first time this monarch has felt appreciation for a person of the human race. Thunder Monarch chuckled deeply. Then thank you for your appreciation. Lu Muyen replied lightly. What did you all want to do, coming to the 3 danger areas of Sunset Cloud Mountain Range? Thunder Monarch asked. Lu Muyen's bright eyes gleamed. She raised her head and said, came in to contract a few tier 5 demonic beasts as spirit pets. Since you want me to do something for you, why don't you give me some interest first? Bingji and Shui, who stood on her shoulders, rolled their eyes at the same time. Did their owner have to be so arrogant? She even dared to ask for interest in front of such a high-level demonic beast. Truly, it made them worship her so much. Mo Yan's indifferent eyes were also dyed with a smile. This woman really had a temperament that wouldn't allow herself to suffer any losses wherever she went. Thunder Monarch was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. This human woman was indeed really interesting. Being here for so many years, this was the first time anyone dared to ask him for interest. Speak. Gift a few peak phase tier 5 demonic beasts to me. Lu Muyen said exorbitantly. I believe that with your cultivation base and vision, this request should be considered a drizzle, right? Such a request is indeed nothing. Sure, this monarch agrees. Thunder Monarch didn't hesitate. You also shouldn't remain here any longer. Hurry back and improve your strength to participate in the continental tournament for hegemony. After speaking, he didn't wait for Lu Muyen to answer, and with a wave of his sleeve, she and the few people in the golden thorn bushes were sent out of the 3 danger areas. After Lu Muyen disappeared in the large hall, he poured a glass of wine and there was a rare smile on his stern face. Little girl, after 2 months, I hope you can remain alive to see this monarch come true. Chapter 165. Guess Lu Muyen was sent by Thunder Monarch to outside the foggy forest. As soon as she stabilized herself, 8 peak phase tier 5 demonic beasts with their demonic energy bound fell to her side. She looked around and found that there weren't any auras of xuanhuan and the others, and also knew that Thunder Monarch didn't want her to be exposed. She walked in front of the several demonic beasts, quickly formed seals and inserted a different type of contract skill within the ancient contract skill into the body of the demonic beasts. The jade-colored talisman seals entered the bodies of the 8 demonic beasts one after the other, forming a seal in the Yaofu. As long as it was under the influence of her mental energy, others could be recognized as owner. After the contract was completed, she put all the 8 demonic beasts into the spirit beast ring. Moyen, can you find out where Qinghan and the others are? Lu Muyen also put Shui into the spirit beast ring. He was also one of her life-saving skills and couldn't be exposed. Moyen looked towards the east and said, over there. It'll take nearly 2 hours to get there. Lu Muyen nodded, then used flash steps to move in that direction. She didn't want to go there so early, and by arriving 2 hours later she could also bring out 2 demonic beasts, saying that she caught it along the way. Owner, what does the tier 9 demon cultivator want you to help with? I don't think it'll be that simple. Bing Jie's tone carried some rare cautiousness. Lu Muyen smiled and said, well, know when the time comes. Didn't you hear him keep emphasizing that he hopes for me to stay alive to see him? Just what's his purpose? Mo Yan's eyes darkened. Did you all discover a problem? Lu Muyen asked. What problem? Mo Yan and Bing Ji asked at the same time. He was constantly asking me about my ancient contract skill, and he emphasized the continental tournament for hegemony. That is, what he asked me to help with must have something to do with the tournament for hegemony. Lu Muyen said. The two demons reviewed the conversation between Thunder Monarch and Lu Muyen and found the same problem. Mo Yen said, "Indeed, he said last that he hoped you would be alive to see him in the tournament for hegemony and asked you not to delay and to hurry back to improve your strength for the tournament. His goal is definitely for the tournament for hegemony. Why is a Tier 9 demon cultivator going for the humans' continental tournament for hegemony?" After Bing Ji began to follow Lu Muyen, he also knew of Tianling Continent's tournament for hegemony, so he was very puzzled by the demon cultivator's purpose. Could it be that he wants to destroy the humans' prosperous age? Probably not. Lu Muyen shook her head. Don't overthink it. We'll know when the time comes. She didn't think that Thunder Monarch had such a noble sentiment that he would fight against the human race for the sake of the demon race. From the fact that he gifted her Tier 5 demonic beasts as interest, she knew that demon cultivator's personality was extremely indifferent. She just had a feeling that the Tier 9 demon cultivator was not only going for the tournament for hegemony, but also had a deep connection with the tournament. Our top priority right now is to improve our strength. Lu Muyen's eyes revealed firmness. Bing Ji, you can't be lazy when we return. Today's events had affected her deeply. It felt very awful to be threatened by high-level powerhouses. If she wanted to break free from such a situation, then she must make herself infinitely stronger, and as such, could also be able to protect her family. I know, owner. Bing Ji nodded. Since meeting that Tier 9 demon cultivator, he also didn't dare to be complacent and conservative anymore. For the first time, a sense of crisis was born in his heart. 2 hours later, Lu Muyen rushed to a dense forest. Shi Feng and the others sat cross-legged under a big tree to recover. After discovering a foreign aura and realized it was Lu Muyen's, the several people opened their eyes and looked at her with a little excitement. Muyen, are you fine? Come and read on our website wuxialover site. Thanks, I'm fine. I've made you all worry. Lu Muyen could see that although the several people were recovering, but the worried looks couldn't be concealed. That Tier 9 demon cultivator didn't make things difficult for you, right? Xuanhuan asked in concern. No, just asked me about the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. Lu Muyen didn't want to tell the few people about her agreement with Thunder Monarch, but he doesn't allow us to stay in the 3 danger areas anymore, so he sent us all out. Xuanhuan and the others nodded with varying expressions, knowing that things were definitely not that simple, but they understood to not ask any more questions. Let's go back to Luoxi City. Lu Muyen wanted to remove Yi Qinglu and Ling Fei Yang's poison and quickly return to the Lu clan as soon as possible to prepare for the continental tournament for hegemony. Hearing the tone of that Tier 9 demon cultivator, the continental tournament for hegemony wasn't that simple, and there were also life-threatening worries. She should at least do some more preparations. All right. The matter of catching demonic beasts at Sunset Cloud Mountain Range was already impossible now, and they also wanted to return to Luoxi City as soon as possible. It only took the few people half a day to return to Luoxi City on Bing Ji. Originally, Mu Yi and Shi Feng didn't plan to stay after visiting, but Lu Muyen's treatment could be observed, so they didn't leave immediately either. At night, Lu Muyen called for Yunlan and Ling Fei Yang telepathically.